It's 2020 is a bitch, so we're kind of over the whole Earth thing. We're going to Craster. Talking about our game DreadLore. We're editing the book.
All right.
Doing it live.
I just made it work.
Excellent. We'll see you. Too late. 2020 is a bitch, so we're over Earth. We're leaving. We're going to Craster. We're going to talk about our book, DreadLore.
Gummy bears.
We're doing gummy bears, doing edits. We'll be on YouTube. Editing the book. See you there. Gummy bears. 2020 is a bitch, so we're over Earth. We're leaving. We're going to Craster. We're going to talk about our book, DreadLore. We're doing gummy bears, we're doing edits. Be on YouTube. Editing the book. See you there. 2020 is a bitch, so we're over Earth. We're leaving. We're going to Craster. Oh, are you streaming?
Oh, we're streaming.
Oh, God.
Wow. No one's here, but...
Gummy bears.
Okay. I'm going to set up real quick.
Now I have to actually do it.
Yeah.
So no. How do I do this? What's the next part?
Did you already record it?
Yeah, it's there.
Did you record it on Instagram?
Yeah.
Did you hit that button to do so?
Yeah.
Did you hit that button?
Do it.
And you hit that button. You write a caption source, hashtag us, and something button complete. Make sure that we're not streaming the wrong thing. Let's see. Boop. Is that right? I'm going to make sure that we've got all this VLC.
Is Lynch hyphenated?
Live stream? I don't know if it is or not. I need to find the share. That's what I'm looking for. Copy. They make it easy, but they make it also kind of hard. Announcements. Live stream is up. I'm just going to ping everybody on this. Okay. So, that is... Go ahead and disable Discord stream, because we're not doing Discord today. Really, the only reason that I do Discord is... so that people on our channel, on our Discord server, can jump on and be a part of the game. But for this, obviously it's just a YouTube thing. Yeah, this is the first real-time, no pun intended, that Baad and I have done a live stream. And honestly, I feel like we had thought we were doing this, or we were gonna do this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because when we first, we might as well tell them about DreadLore, since this will be saved on YouTube, and I can post it up there and whatnot.
Absolutely.
So, what is the story of DreadLore? All right, so I went to China at some point. I should not have this beer next to the microphone. That's a stupid idea. I went to China in 2010, and Baad and I, at this point, leading up to that, we gamed a whole lot. We mostly did Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. Normally I ran, and I'm not entirely sure why that was, but I did. And
he's a control freak, and he struggles under the yoke of another master.
Yeah. There you go. So, yeah, fair. And so yeah, we played these epic games. You know, they literally were epic games by the game's definition. We did some other stuff, and so that's how we know each other, pretty much, through gaming. Well, go on.
I was going to say, we met in a coffee shop that you worked in that I later worked in as well, and you started a conversation with me because you saw that I was creating campaign notes for a Star Wars game I was
I'd
about to
forgotten
run.
about that.
And you saw that I was about to DM some Star Wars, and you invited me to your Epic game.
That's right. That's right.
How we
Holy
became
shit.
friends.
I did not. I forgot about that.
That is how we became friends.
Yeah. At any rate, it was probably Star Wars Saga.
It was Saga.
Yeah, which is a good system until the third-party stuff, and then it got OP AF. I also completely, not to get off on a tangent, but I completely disagree with the Jedi Class as it is imbalanced with the other classes.
You're talking about the Jedi Master Prestige, where you get the meditate power?
No, I'm talking about the Jedi Class. As in, a level 1 Jedi can pwn, hands down, a level 10 soldier.
Yeah.
You immediately can take the right feats, put the right stats in your attributes to have essentially the maximum force power.
It's like a plus 15 on level 1.
And
the force.
That, whatever number that is, after you roll your die 20, is, I believe, the DC to resist powers. And one of the first powers you can just take, it doesn't matter if you're light side, dark side, doesn't matter, is Force Choke. There's no fucking save. If you get them, you get them. And they can make no actions except choke until they die.
That's why you throw multiple people at them and they're like, oh, I got you. And the other 3 come out and just beat them with bats.
Right. Or with bats.
Get him, man!
I hated it. I hated that whole idea.
Well, you know, that's the fundamental problem that a lot of games suffer. And for example, D&D. 5th edition D&D has come a long way to resolve this, but it's the whole quadratic wizards, linear fighters problem.
You're going to have to explain that to the masses.
Essentially, if you have spells, you're better. Because you can use spells to emulate the class abilities of martial classes, of non-spellcasters. It generally gives you a wider berth of possibilities when it comes to how you're spending your turns, using your actions. When you are not a spellcaster in a lot of these RPGs, your abilities, your expertise is they're all sort of fixed. You're making meaningful choices about what you're good at, what you're okay at, and what you're only attempting in moments of desperation. Spellcasters can just use magic to change that for themselves with enough preparation, sometimes with no preparation.
Jedi are basically sorcerers.
And yeah,
so they can just.
Well, they still in Saga they have to pick their force powers known. But again,
really,
yeah.
Oh, known.
Yeah.
Known, but not per day.
Well, they have to, exactly, not per day, but they have to buy them. So
that's those 2 are yours.
Because
I will be vacuous. Vacuous. I will be like a vacuum.
Oh.
By the way, Cameron agrees with us. He says, "I'll argue that tangent all day long. One skill to control everything you do, no doubt. That's one thing." And I don't mean to cut you off. D20, the version previous to Saga, had multiple skills to control force power.
There was something about Homebrew Saga where they split it, and Saga tried to do it by making Jedi dependent on charisma and wisdom on some level, but they didn't go hard in the paint about it. And when it came to the meaningful choice that you had to make as a Jedi was, do I want to be sort of
wizard,
the consular archetype, the counselor, or the guardian? Do I want to be a martial Jedi who focuses on lightsaber shit, Or do I want to be a fucking sorcerer and just pump out force powers? And the answer to that, if you're optimizing, which is what this conversation is about, is sorcerer. So yeah, it was just something that other classes couldn't do. I do think that Saga did a really good job making all the classes interesting.
And they felt like Star Wars classes.
I still have a special place in my heart for Saga Edition, but it definitely fell prey to, Jedi they have spells. They have magic.
Yeah.
And no one else does.
Well,
And when we refer to Jedi, we're talking about the non-Jedi Force traditions as well. So, the Force Adepts and all that stuff. Everybody knows what a Jedi is. That's why we're using that word.
Yeah.
We can get pedantic. I can definitely get pedantic. I don't need to.
So, what was I going to say? Yeah, one of the reasons that we're talking about all of this is because we can't help ourselves. But the other thing, is it actually pertains greatly to the beginning of DreadLore and why we undertook this thing that truly has been about 8 years, 7.5 years. Yeah,
Demonetized.
Yeah, we're. You say demonetized?
I said fuck.
Oh, I said fuck. Fuck.
Oh, it's not my fault.
I don't give a shit.
It wasn't me. I choked on a gummy bear.
Yeah.
Revenge!
I don't care. I mean, we're not monetizing this right now. We have one person watching.
Oh, indeed. I just watch enough YouTube and all the content creators bitching about demonetization that I feel
Whatever, man. If they're going to demonetize,
make a joke from our time.
Yeah, if they're going to demonetize, then they're going to demonetize. Whatever, Like even if the YouTube channel, which I'm attempting to make something bunkum, this YouTube channel, a source of passive income, and it is the thing that I'm doing right now. But it's not going to be the one thing that I make money off of. I mean, I couldn't do that. Like, I get bored. I want to do other shit.
We should have made a script.
We don't need a script.
Nah, we're doing it live. So, we were talking about why we made DreadLore.
Right.
So, we met over 3.5 edition and Saga edition.
Sparks flew.
Sparks flew. We thought we were married ever since. Which is fine.
Yeah.
So, there came a point in our gaming experience, in our gaming group, and specifically the two of us, where the dogma of D&D wasn't cutting it for us anymore. D20 wasn't to our tastes. Specifically, the mechanism of reward through killing monsters and looting treasure became sort of shallow for us, and we wanted to shift. We have been, or had been, shifting the focus of our groups with our players, with our friends, towards meaningful stories, meaningful choices, and there's a point where we realized that the system that you play the game in has a significant bias on the narrative, on the game, on the play experience. And so we said we're going to make our own because we weren't really aware of any game out there at the time that we started this that would foster the kind of play experience that we were hoping for.
Well, and to boot, I mean, we were solving a problem, but also we wanted to make a game.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, that was just kind of part of the thing. I feel like there's more negative space on your side than my side. It's bugging.
Is that better?
Yeah, better.
All right. I like how we're both wearing black and red.
Yeah, that's because we're fucking cool. You got the Scald shirt, Wardruna. I've got the wrong way. What?
Metallica.
I keep it the wrong way. I don't know where this shirt came from. Like, I know where I got it, but no one knows whence it came. Again, I was in China, and probably should not do that. I'm not doing it to be a bigot. It's just funny, and my Chinese friends think it's funny. Anyway, point. My friend Jeff, I was staying with him near Shanghai, and he was like, "Hey, is this your shirt? This Metallica shirt?" And I was like, "Yes." But we had no idea where it came from, so that's why I have it. It's a fucking awesome shirt. I listened to the this album, after the fact. I'd never heard this album. It's a pretty early album.
Damage Inc. By the way, if you don't recognize the
yeah, I'd never heard
cover
it.
art.
I knew later Metallica, like Metallica in the late 80s and 90s and stuff, and I just didn't know this one. Anyway,
I'm awful with band histories, and I don't track albums.
Well, I mean, you can. Well, this is what I was trying to say. As pertaining to gaming and developing your own system, we developed DreadLore. Developed it with on the backs of many of our friends. Cameron being one of them. He actually designed the logo that you're seeing there, both the DreadLore and the DreadLore Relapse, which is DreadLore 2.0. So the long and the short of it is this. We played a whole bunch of games, different die types, so D10 based systems, D20 based, D6, and Baad came up to me one day after I was visiting town, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to create a system with me? Help me create a system. It'll be based in D10, and which is a joke, and we'll make up the mechanics and whatnot." And I was like, "Yes, of course." So we do. And originally it was like 1 or 2 pages.
Yeah, it was really, really rules light.
Yeah.
The idea was you roll a d10 because we were trying to make it based off of essentially like a decimal.
Yeah, it was decimal based.
Yeah.
It was a point buy system, I believe.
It wasn't even that complicated. That's why it was only like 2 pages. Like, you had some character traits and a character, like a way of like fleshing out an idea of self for the character you want to portray, a little bit of a story, some personality quirks.
We called it the crack system.
And you just roll d10s, and it didn't matter. And we realized, like, while we had a good time playing it, it needed to be crunchier.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I ran a sort of a setup game for it, an initial alpha test, you could say. And while it was very cool, just what he said, it's almost like we were just. It's the thing. So let's define our audience really quick, because this could be for anyone, but we're also talking maybe mainly to people that have played tabletop RPGs. We're using a lot of terms and a lot of, we're assuming you know a fair amount about them, or at least have played D&D or something like that. So really quick, before we jump into more of this, let's go over real basic what the hell is a what is a tabletop RPG. If you don't know that, then, we'll describe it in a different video.
It's a game you play on the tabletop. There's a bunch of different kinds. Board games, Dungeons & Dragons, you roll dice, you've got pen and paper. Anything on the tabletop. Card games are tabletop games. They're not RPGs.
Right, so TTRPG is what we're talking about. TTRPG, that's what we're talking about. And typically you're rolling dice, you're looking for a number, and if you get that number, you succeed on what you're trying to do. If you do not get the number, you fail. That's the basic premise. Usually there's class levels. The higher level you are, the more powerful you are. Some systems are point buy. So you don't have class levels. The more dots you have in something, maybe the more dice you have. And perhaps you add up all the dice, and that number is like 57, and that's good. That's more like a D6 system. D10 is usually, you're looking for a target number on a die. So let's say you roll an 8, 9, or 10. Well, that's considered a success. And then if you have 10 dice and you roll those and you get a certain number of successes, and that gives you sort of like, oh, if you got 1 success, you do the thing. If you got 5, you do the thing really well. Yeah, that's basically where we're going with these mechanics type things. The most lauded, the most well-known is D20. So you roll a 20-sided dice, and that's the one in popular culture and all that stuff. Anything that riffs on geeks, they're using die 20 almost always.
And that's because of TSR and eventually Wizard of the Coast and that brainchild called Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, these are companies that created Dungeons and Dragons. And the main idea is D&D, it was made in the 70s. So this is kind of before console video games and that kind of stuff. Mm. So take that into account when I say this. D&D or Die 20, it's like playing a video game, but without the video. Like, it translates very well. In a video game, you start off weak, you get stronger. And the bad guys level with you, and you get cool shit that you can kill more shit with, to do more shit, to kill more shit, to win.
It's definitely an addicting reward system. The game can become about the next level.
Well, the game is about the next level.
Getting that sword, getting that hammer, the Holy Avenger +5.
Right.
Whatever. And not about the play experience, not about the story you're telling your friends.
Well, just think about any video game that you may have played. Let's say Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario World. Well, you play through the game, and then after you play through the game, what do? You troll the game and look for all the stars, or you wait in the place, or you redo it, reset to make sure you do a thing. And honestly, that's a lot of times how people play D&D.
You hop in other people's game sessions as a Red Phantom in Dark Souls and murder them while they're trying to play.
I didn't know you could do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can.
But
that's why our friend has such a
speak up.
That's why our friend Ryan, yeah, he has an interesting reputation on one of his old gamer tags because
that's what he'd do.
That's what he would do.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me see who's what's saying what. Lol, I have the logo for that too. Yes, remember the rule of thirds. Tilt the camera down a bit. Thank you, Cameron. Wait, rule of thirds? Motherfucker? We're doing this right? Are we?
I don't know.
I guess it could be right here.
I don't want to see my dick. I'm not wearing okay. I am. I lied. I'm wearing pants.
I already don't need to do this. That's ridiculous. Shorts. We're just taking up the whole thing.
It just used to be about the waist is better.
Yeah.
We should have put the world behind us.
We should have put the world.
Should have put the world behind us. That's where we fucked
It's a smaller wall. And originally we were going to stand in front of it, but my microphone and none of that shit worked.
It would have fucked with the lighting.
It would have fucked with the right.
Speaking of fucking with the lighting, I'm going to close this door.
Truth. You know the reason I didn't close it?
Eat?
No. Echo.
Do you want to test it?
Hello. Is there a lot of echo right now?
Yes.
Yep. That is why I did it. I was thinking of a subwoofer. Actually letting some of that air out. What? So this room... God, we're going on a tangent. This room...
Should have had a script.
I will eventually... Fuck scripts. I will eventually put some egg crate on and whatnot. I've talked about this in something Bunkum. So, all this about gaming. However, just like with anything that people do, sports, I don't know why I mentioned sports because I don't know shit about it. Coffee, I know about coffee. You start drinking coffee. Typically, it's complicated. There's sugar, there's whipped cream, there's all kinds of craziness in your coffee.
And you're hiding the experience of the coffee.
Well, you keep on drinking it. You might like that drink a lot, but eventually, if you actually get into coffee, it starts getting simpler until you're drinking just coffee. Maybe you add milk or something to it, but it's much more basic. That said, it's not that your understanding of it has become simpler. In fact, your understanding is probably much more complex. And I think you find this in a lot of things that you can actually grow into. And with gaming, it's the same. There is a point where there is a moment.
There is a... Thank you, Matt Damon.
Anyway, Interstellar. So there's a point where you're playing D&D, and you've gotten to the highest level. You've gotten to do the thing so many times that it just sort of loses its luster. You're like, yeah, I rolled my die and I got high, so I win. Or I did not get as high, so I lose. You might as well flip a coin. And you play with other people, and it's kind of like it doesn't matter what you play. You just have... It's like playing a video game, like a fighting game. If you hit that one button that everybody has, you do kind of a different move, but all it does is kill shit. And you get into what's called story. Now, I say that and sound like a goof because everybody knows what a story is.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like capital story, and this is something I've noticed about a lot of gamers who were bad.
We're just calling people out.
Bad to play with.
Let's throw them under the bus.
Throw them right under the bus. They all say this. They're all like, I really care about the story. I'm all about the narrative. Yeah, that motherfucker? No, they don't. They want to shoot it and stab it. That's what they want to do. It's kind of like any country. It's like any country. This is actually a true thing. It's like any country that has republic in the title most likely was a former communist country. That's actually something that is fairly true. I'm not saying it's across the board, but it's pretty...
It's a recognizable pattern.
Yeah, it's a recognizable pattern. It's a recognizable pattern to hear people at, cons or game shops, who they might have their weekly game, and there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I think it's awesome. But the quality of gaming that you get in that is, you don't really get down deep into it.
Yeah. You ultimately play the game that you want to play. If that's what you enjoy, we're not trying to say you're wrong in that.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're just not a good gamer.
You're just lying to yourself if you're in it for the story. What you're in it for is the personal reward of leveling up.
Well, you can't be. I mean, it's like yes, the personal reward. Because the thing is, if you're playing this game, you're often playing with people you cannot control who's in the game. Now, maybe you have, for instance, Huffaker, which I don't know if I posted it. That may have just been for Patreon patrons. But I did a Patreon. I did a Discord chat with our friend, or do you know Huffaker? You know Huffaker. With my good friend Huffaker, and he's a very good DM. He DM Dungeon Master or GM Game Master, or in our case Arbiter. He runs the game. He runs the game in a very different way than I do. But he was talking about he has had a 2-year-long campaign with mostly the same people, running, I think, 3.5 or 5th Ed. I think it's 5th Ed. And
D&D.
Yeah, D&D. And it's at a gaming shop, and he said it's great. He said it's amazing. The problems would be it's a little bit too loud because it's in a public space. And then every so often, there's people that want to jump in, but it's kind of hard. Imagine you're watching a series like Game of Thrones or something, and then out of nowhere, there's some new character that utterly changes the plot, and then 2 episodes later, they're gone.
Forever.
And you're like...
Plot hole.
Or even better than Game of Thrones, Jesus, fucking Naruto, right? Like old school Naruto before the Shippuden, where it's just clearly filler episodes. Because they haven't...
did that too.
Huh?
Shippuden did that too.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the most egregious examples of entire filler arcs, not just episodes, arcs.
Yeah, well, Cameron actually, he's the one who showed me, he and my friend Austin Roberts, they showed me Naruto way back in the day, and we had this line. It was Goram butterflies, Goram butterflies, because at the end of the show you would see butterflies, and you're like, oh my god, it's another cliffhanger, and I've invested 5 fucking hours into this, and it's all filler. You realize that Naruto's not getting together with Sakura. God damn it, doesn't matter what they were gonna do. That bullshit that you feel, that's what happens when you have a game that's running a year long. You guys are in it, and then some asshole comes and plays, stabs the bad guy, and then rolls off and never comes back again. That fucking sucks. Now, is it trolly? Is it funny? No.
Most of the time, they don't.
No, it's not.
Most of the time, they don't mean to do that.
A lot of times they don't mean to do that.
They're, I'd say that it's, it's a witch hunt to say that gamers are out to destroy people's games. It happens. Trolls exist, but yeah, no.
Oh, this is Megan. Hi, Megan. No doubt the other way. Oh shit. Nice. The logo for that too, no doubt. Plot cookies only, weak plot, and hack and slash indeed. Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying.
Indeed. And where I was going with it was the idea that I may have lost this train of thought.
It doesn't matter.
But especially in pickup games where you don't have a firm, consistent player base, like Adventurers League or Games and Cons and that kind of thing, it's hard to build a rapport and with the other players and actually play off of them well in a more cooperative sense. Yes, you're in a party, it's cooperative, but at the same time, you don't know them. You're not necessarily friends with them. You may be cordial and want to be friends with them, but you might not be there yet unless you went to the con together. But at the end of the day, everyone at that table on some level cares about their play experience. They care about their character. And even in long-running campaigns with friends that we've known for decades, listen to the way that players recount the events of the last session. Are they focusing on their character? Do they remember how the other player characters look? What mannerisms do they know? Do they focus on themselves is what I'm asking. And if the answer is yes, then they're not playing for the story. They're playing for getting the rocks off, however that may be.
Furiously masturbating to how high they can roll on a die.
In a lot of cases. Which is, if that's what you're in it for, great. Games are to have fun. Our game, DreadLore, is designed to bias the play experience away from that towards the unified goal of cooperative storytelling.
That was a lot of words.
It's about building a story, telling a story with your friends. It's not about getting to level 15.
Well, there is no level 15.
There are no class levels.
So, Megan brought up a good point.
We don't reward you for killing things.
Megan brought up a good point. The idea of meta plots. Hack and slash is fun as hell. Sometimes you just want to play a fucking zombie game.
You feel good.
And it's awesome. And that there's a place for that. And you can even have, Mirror Darkly style episodes, right? Where you have a really intense game, and then there's the one episode, the one session, where it's like, and you're just doing shit. That's awesome. The thing is, always doing that, it just becomes bland. And it became bland to us. So, here's the thing. And this was one of the contentions that Huffaker, during our discussion, and myself, I should say it was a contention between he and I. And what that was is, he was saying, you could run compelling stories in Dungeons and Dragons. Agreed. But this is, and if you go, you can navigate to. I should post it onto something, Buncombe. we have a channel called The Arbiter's Blatherings. Actually, the channel's called DreadLore System, and the playlist is called Arbiter's Blatherings. Arbiter being the storyteller, blathering meaning doing what we're doing right now. And in it, I typically interview players and other game masters and ask them, questions like what we're discussing.
Yeah.
One of them has to do with, does the system matter? And this is something that Baad was talking about. Yes, you can have a compelling story playing Dungeons & Dragons.
Absolutely.
You could play a horror game, which is, in my opinion, I think probably yours, one of the most difficult but rewarding kinds of games to play and run. The thing is, you can make a compelling story out of Monopoly. It's like, if you break out the Monopoly board, okay? Now you have the confines of a board. You got squares, you got fucking Park Place, you got dice. Someone can be the cannon, someone can be the fucking shoe. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Within the bounds of Monopoly, of how to win that game, you can also have compelling stories. Just if you have the players to do it. The shoe, you could give them a personality, kind of like in Clue. You could give the cannon a personality, whatever. And then, oh shit, you rolled on Park Place? Cthulhu monsters. Dim the lights, have the music going, whatever the fuck.
It's just how hard you have to work for it.
And in fact, this was one of the things that to get us all the way back, that we found out to the crack system, which was the initial system that we created, the Die 10 version, which was like 2 pages, is we realized we weren't really playing the game system. We were using it as sort of a method, like a raft, right? Just to have rules. And for those that are seasoned gamers, and I think it was Logan, no, it wasn't Logan, it was Jacob Folsom told me this. Actually, it was right around the same time that we started DreadLore. He said the best, also another game master, by the way, the best game he's ever played, or at least at the time, it was a game where one night they were sitting around, chilling, and they were like, you know what? Let's fucking game. But we don't want to do D&D. Let's just make one up. Let's just make up rules. And you know what? We'll have 2 stats, brain and muscle, whatever. And you can have a certain number on that stat, and that's how many dice you roll. Let's do D6, so die 6s, 6-sided dice. And you want high, you want low. Write down 3 skills you can do, and that gives you an extra die. Bam. That was it.
Sounds a lot like everyone's, John.
There you go. The idea, though, is he said it was amazing. The role play was awesome. Everyone was creative. It was fresh. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, the reason is because you don't need a lot to have fun, right? Because that game system is so bare bones that the way that players are using that system is to do what they want to do in the story. And they haven't gotten to that point where they're like, oh, well, you should always choose this and this and this because it always wins. Because the game is also too simple to even do it. It doesn't matter. So, we realized we needed a more robust rule system. We started developing the setting, which got awesome and huge, etc. And we did this.
Never underestimate how intense world building is.
It's awesome.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Very rewarding.
Huge.
Huge.
And you forget everything.
You forget everything.
I forget everything. So, the long and short of that is DreadLore 1.0 ended with DreadLore 1.7. And that is actually up on Google Drive, which we can actually post a link to if you want to see it. And
let us know.
Yeah, and we're not messing with that. That's a very crunchy version. It's a lot of fun. My friend Jeff, who I think I've already mentioned, that's where I got the shirt. I had pretty much given up on DreadLore. We had given up on DreadLore, probably 2017-18. We were done. And when I got back, I was just about to get back from China from the second time. And my friend Jeff, he saw it, and we were talking about gaming and all these things. We had like 3 weeks where we were hanging out in Shanghai just gaming, all kinds of stuff. It was awesome. And all sorts of different games. And he was like, we should work on DreadLore. And I was like, fuck you. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So we made DreadLore 2.0, or Redux, or Relapse. And that's the joke. And it's a very different kind of system. The whole point is the mechanics of the game. If you do them right, it gives you a reward, right? And so if you make a character that is kind of the best way to make that character, using the game mechanics, the reward is story. For example, D&D, Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Ed, you would get experience points, XP, which is how you get power, how you gain class levels. You get it for killing things. That's how you got XP. So you got better by killing things. I think the same thing in Dark Souls, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a point where you sit around and you kill cows. Because it gives you XP. And cows aren't fighting back. Right? So you can get to level 20 killing cows.
World of Warcraft, any RPG, especially MMOs, that the fetch quests, the kill quests, you're doing mindless, sometimes
it takes
banal.
time. It takes time. That's the whole point, because they want you to continue playing the game.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, in a role-playing game, you don't want to waste time.
Not at all.
That doesn't make sense. You want compelling stories. But if the game mechanics reward you, then for wasting time, then you're going to waste time. Or you're going to have to sit there and constantly push and pull against players doing that, because why wouldn't they? If the silver bullet kills the monster, everybody's going to try to get the silver bullet, right? That was a terrible example, but it kind of made sense. So in DreadLore 2.0, there's none of that bullshit. Instead, the whole idea is your character has a goal, a major goal, and a minor goal. The only way you advance, which means you can get something new out of the book, you can buy something, the only way to do it is by completing a certain amount of goals. Each player can do that. Each player has a major and a minor goal. But the party, as the party gets their own goals, there's like a group kitty. Once you get to that level, once you get to that number of everyone's goals, doesn't matter who got the goals, everyone advances. Oh, you did a bunch of cool shit? Great, we all benefit. So that allows, if you're like, shit, the person who's kind of, playing the paladin kind of character, they have to run down that, tunnel into the devil's thing to kill him, because that's who their character is. Great. Because they're accomplishing their goals, they're playing their character, it helps you all as well.
And because everyone benefits, everyone's inclined to assist one another, and because the more goals that the individuals achieve, the faster the party is improved, then there's a strong impetus, a strong drive to align those goals. And ultimately, those goals are about the story.
Right.
Yes, you advance your character in a mechanical sense, but when you're doing that, you are telling the story. The story becomes about the goals, the things that your characters and the party as a whole are attempting to accomplish. They're a legend. And you're writing it together. Yeah, we got to catch up on these.
Yeah.
Yes, Megan, one-shot games... I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, go on.
One-shot games can be killer. Also, hello. They absolutely can. Some of my favorite games, I like to run a game called Everyone is John. And it's a quick pickup game, and you just sort of make it up. There are some really basic rules, but I'm okay. But it's akin to what he was talking about with Folsom's game. They can be great. It's a great opportunity to meet new people and and enjoy a shared hobby, right? So absolutely, I'm not knocking that at all. let's see here. Yeah, hell yeah, Ravenloft. It's good shit. Okay.
That's one of the-
horror.
That's one of the. Don't be sorry. Yeah, Arkham Horror is a great fucking game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Call of Cthulhu. The game itself is, if you just grind that game, as Megan had mentioned, it's just not fun in my opinion, because that is definitely one of those games where there's a pattern, depending on the elder god you're facing, and if you don't do the pattern, you're basically just losing. It reminds me of like Axis and Allies in a way. That said, if you do what Megan's doing, which is making it about a story, actually delving into, the weird stories of Call of Cthulhu, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I would personally rather play the Call game, which I think is a die 100 system. Anyway.
At the end of the day, to wrap this up, to circle back, what we are talking about is you can play the game you want to play in the system you want to play and have your own kind of fun. When it comes down to it, though, the system that you're playing biases the play experience. It biases the story because there is a reward system in place no matter what you're doing. And if you're trying to alter that so that you can accomplish your goals as a player or as an arbiter or DM, then you're working harder than you need to. If you pick the system that's appropriate, if you pick the game that's appropriate for the fun you're trying to have, then you're working, way less to accomplish that. And if you've ever run a game before, I know that the two of you that are watching right now have, but later viewers, if you've run a game before, there's a lot of work that goes into that. And we've got mosquitoes. If you can reduce that workload, you want to. So, whether at some point it's, do I have to change the world? Do I have to create my own fantasy because the system came with one? Or, which Star Wars system is best for the kind of Star Wars I want to play? It's over there by the window.
Come on, okay. Where? Here. There. There. Ha!
You got it.
Fuck you, motherfucker! Fuck, goddamn!
We have mosquitoes.
I hate them.
Work smarter, not harder. I feel like Mike Rowe would have a problem with that.
Work smarter, not harder. I love it. Yeah, that was my gripe. Sorry, sounds somewhat of a mechanic in old school Wraith. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, in fact, we should actually mention, although I never actually played in one of Megan's games, she told me a bunch about them. And she ran, from what I understand, a killer vampire game. Yeah. And we definitely LARPed together, and because we're real cool. At any rate. So we're actually going to get into the book a little bit. Finally. An hour in.
Let's see what Megan had to say about. Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm Josh and you. Yes.
Yep.
Make work easier by thinking about it first. Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yep. All right. Also, real quick, just about this stream, since you guys are actually watching right now, how is the mic level? Is it pretty good?
Am I too quiet?
Am I too loud? Because I'm technically nearer to the mic than you are, because it's on this side.
Oh, true. Yeah, and I'm the quiet one. Maybe I should have sat there.
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
You want to switch it up? We'll stay here.
Stay here.
We'll see what they say. And we'll go from there. All right. So, all right, let's jump into this thing. I did just realize that us editing the book, we're going to have to actually lean in. Let me put the book link really quick in this chat so you guys can see it. Good link.
Good link.
Hopefully I didn't just tell everyone all of our email addresses. If I did, I will. It's the wrong thing.
You might have.
Maybe. I think you're mostly good. Switch chairs, the coolest I see. Yeah, she says we should switch chairs. So that is a link to the book. If you want to follow along with us, then again, knowing Megan, she actually could just be making us move because, she's like, I made them move. Yeah.
I don't like it over here. It's weird.
It is weird over
It's
here.
left. It's too left.
You can go a little bit left. All right. Because we don't need that at all. Okay.
Not really.
I appreciate that. All right,
Well, it's
so
always good at what?
projecting. I do. I'm a pretentious like a shit. I know what she means though. Here. All right, so degrees of failure. That's hilarious that that's where we are. Let me make sure that that actually looks good. It did not update. I wonder why it did not update, yeah. Well, I hope that that actually shows. Hey now. Alright, give me a second. I'm gonna toy around with this. Come back. Maybe it'll actually update now. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's not actually moving with our mouse. That is annoying.
What's not moving?
Yeah.
This?
Yeah.
They're just seeing that front page.
Yep, they're just seeing the front page, which is strange. We have an
That means
anonymous
you
element.
you didn't dox us. So that's good.
I didn't dox us. Oh, right, indeed.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so regardless,
Happy accidents.
there is I was giving you an actual compliment. Just saying, I know, and I appreciate it. So we're showing on this stream what we're editing, but it looks like it's not actually updating. So if you want to follow it, go to that link, and at the top, if you've never used Google Drive or Google Docs, it'll have the little circles. One will be Anonymous Elephant. One should be DreadLore System, which is us. If you click on it once, it'll actually pop you down to where we are. We'll have to figure this out another time because I want to actually get into this shit. Okay, so we are here. Degrees of failure. So pretty much how Baad and I are doing this, we're literally reading through the book.
Yep.
Which is a little bit tedious, but you have to do it.
I have to do it. And it's only part of our process. I mean, we're going through the different aspects of the book, and we're marking things for potential edits, making comments, the things that we can, problems that we can resolve, things we can add, things that need clarity. Once we've had a discussion through text on that, then we live stream the resolution.
Right.
So,
and in the event that anyone wants to be active in that, let us know. On the chat would be okay. It would be better to email DreadLore System
at gmail.com.
Yeah, DreadLore System at gmail.com. Just email us, and we can add you as a permission to be able to comment on the book, and then we can resolve those comments. You'll see several of the comments are actually by him and I, but also several of them are from Cameron, because he's helped us a whole lot. Okay, so right.
Righto.
It is also better for hearing your friend. Appreciate. Alrighty. So, little bit of a recap, just to show you. We're up here at Rolling Successes. This part of the game is all about the dice. So this part of the book, I should say, is all about the dice. And where we actually have gotten to is degrees of failure.
Talking about throwing down.
Talking about throwing down. So you want to give a real quick how the game works, like the three technically major mechanics.
Sure. So there are 3 phases of play in DreadLore. There is the dread, there's the montage, and then there's throwing down. Throwing down should be obvious. You're throwing down some dice onto the table, skitter scatter, there they go. Away they clatter. I don't know what that was. Anyway, you can make fun of me if you want to. You will. You will. So, goblins like shiny rocks.
Anyway.
Click, clack, rocks. The dread is the largely narrative experience. You're not rolling dice in there. You are bidding your personality traits, your character traits. If your character should have a skill or be good at something, they'll have a trait for it. It's essentially a descriptive word or short phrase, an adjective.
It can be good or bad.
Good or bad. It can be a flaw. You can still use it to your advantage in the story. Or if you're being cavalier and brave, you can use it to your disadvantage, just to represent that it's something that your character would have to confront in that moment. Or the arbiter could bid it for you to force you to come to terms with that flaw or act it out.
Just for example, let's give an example.
Sure.
So let's say, this is the example I always use. So let's say a typical fantasy setting, which is really what DreadLore is in, fantasy punk. That's the setting, which we can describe later. It's in the book. This system, the core mechanics, can be used in any setting. We've used it, maybe not any setting. You don't want to play a D&D game in DreadLore, but we've done it in Tron, we've done it in Star Wars, we've done our homebrew.
Craster.
Yeah, we've done tons of stuff. Anyway, I feel like there's another one we did. We did modern, we did cyberpunk, we did a space game. Space game was good.
Space game was really good.
Anyway, so typical fantasy idea. You're with your party, going through the hills, going through the forested hills. The forested hills. But let's say you have a guide. That's an NPC, non-player character, not one of the actual players. That ranger is leading you through a Cumberland Gap-looking place, right? That's what you're trying to find. Now, the arbiter, which would be me right now, describes the situation. Maybe I describe it as it's sunny and the ranger knows where he's going. Or maybe I say it's nighttime, no one can see in the dark, just based on your races. It's raining, there's a storm coming to boot. It's cold, right? So it's that slush rain. The ranger, you get the idea, he doesn't know where the hell he's going. To boot, there's a angry pack of wildebeests hot on your trail. They're hunting you down. You need to find the pass. So there's 2 different situations. That's the environment. Now it's up to the players to decide if they want to make a major action. Major action is, do you change the environment? Does something you do affect the environment? The way you do that is by bidding one trait. So, what would you bid, Ben?
The example I always go with is snowshoes.
Right.
I brought equipment for inclement weather. I strap on them bitches to my feet, and I walk relatively unencumbered over the snow.
But the bid would not be snowshoes.
Bid equipment.
Well, you can bid equipment if you
The bid
have
would be
equipment.
prepared.
Right.
It could be...
Because you can bid, yes, you can bid equipment. You can
Yeah.
bid equipment if you have it. But let's say you don't have it. Let's say it's not written on your sheet, right? Because you didn't know.
Yeah. You could bid prepared to have it. You could bid Boy Scout to make it. You could bid...
Scout, please.
Yeah. We don't want to go there. I shouldn't have gone there. You can bid Scout, Ranger. If you're allowed to be creative with these character traits that you're creating. It's freeform in a lot of ways. So you would bid a trait that you have that is appropriate to what you're trying to do, and you'd act it out. Or, unless you're LARPing, you narrate describe it. You would be the character in that moment doing the thing represented by the bid of that trait.
So, for example, the Arbiter, me, Metallica, could be like, okay, you bid prepared. Cool. Well, that's what you'd say. So what do you bid?
I bid prepared.
Prepared. Okay, well, that's a stepping off point, stepping stone for roleplay. So, go you there forth. What does that mean? What does everyone see, or what does no one see? What does the narrator see as you bid prepared?
Indeed. Well, I don't have equipment or snowshoes, but I am prepared. I've got some cordage in my backpack. Everyone sees me take off my pack or my satchel, set it down, and start going through it. I pull out some cordage. I got my belt knife. I go over. I cut off some green branches from nearby trees and start fashioning some snowshoes because I know how to do it.
Right. And then he has snowshoes.
And then I have snowshoes.
Now, it's not, well, if you bid something, you get something. No. It's more, you bid a trait, which is about your character. Well, now you know, it's not just that he rolled a die and was like, oh, I remembered it. It's that his guy is prepared. That's a trait he has. How does that manifest? Well,
in this case, snowshoes.
Right. Now, that trait is exhausted, and this is all the dread. There's no dice need be rolled. Unless, for instance, I, being the Arbiter, would say, okay, as you're sitting over there fashioning some snowshoes, one of the wildebeests, you see his eyes pop out of the darkness. He's right in front of you. He leaps to attack.
And now we would be throwing down.
Right.
Because at that point, we're in combat, and unless...
Or we don't have to throw down.
We don't have to.
So we're just going to go through an idea here.
Sure.
So,
I could just bid another trait.
One of the ideas, and I don't think we've gotten to it yet in the book, because we haven't gotten to the book yet. There's no initiative in DreadLore. In Relapse, I should say. In 1.7, there is. In 2.0, in Relapse, there's no initiative. Instead, the bad guys go first. Now, the world goes first. Everyone responds to the world. Except for God. Everyone responds to the world. So there is a world action. The earthquake happens, right? The bad guy in DreadLore, the BBEG, the big bad evil guy, or the antagonist, as we write in the book, goes first. There is a caveat there. There's something that the players can do. They have this thing, this pool of points called cunning.
Cunning.
If you spend a point of cunning, you go before the bad guy. So you actually regulate when that happens. So, in this example, the wildebeest, you see it. It snarls. You see its big fucking eyes. You see it has thumbs. Wildebeest with thumbs. And it's holding a knife. And it licks it. Leaps at you with its wildebeest teeth. Its thumbs. And its knife. And it stabs you in the throat before...
I bid cunning.
Right. So the idea is, once you actually get people...
Or I spend cunning, rather.
You spend cunning. I am cunning now.
You could.
Good example, never-ending story with the Morg. Not Morg. That's a D&D monster. Gamork.
Gamork.
With a Gamork, when it attacks Atreyu spends cunning. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, shame on you. Go watch that movie, motherfucker. Anyway, so he spends cunning. If he doesn't spend cunning, then what happens is the Arbiter can decide, okay, and we can get to that later about Arbiter mechanics, because the NPCs, the non-player characters, the antagonists, do not work the same as players. That's first. They don't have weird levels and points and crap.
This is probably going to be the last thing that we stream about. So.
Yeah. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So, go with us on this. I would describe the wildebeest with thumbs. He attacks you. He stabs you in the neck. And if he doesn't spend cunning, if he doesn't choose to, or if he doesn't have any, for instance, then he gets what's called a reaction roll. We're throwing down because we're throwing dice. We'll get to that in a second. But he does spend cunning, which means he sees the wildebeest, he sees the thumbs. It leaps at him, licking the knife. He spends cunning, you go first. What do you do? Technically, we're still in the dread. There's no throwing down yet.
What would I do? I'm a prepared...
But you've already spent that.
No, I'm just... I gotta get into the character, you know.
Get into the character.
I gotta get into the character. No, I don't have any combat experience. I'm some sort of cloistered scholar, from the city. I've read about this in textbooks. I practiced it before I left town, and I don't know how to fight.
That's like me changing a tire.
Yeah. Maybe the snowshoes are shitty. They'll get the job done, but who knows? I panic. I spend cunning. I'm quick. And I will beat the thumbed wildebeest about the face and head with this crudely crafted snowshoe.
You take off your concletas, take off your fucking shoes and beat
No,
the shit out of
you said I was still like
right.
weaving over
I
the tree.
thought you took your fucking shoes off. Anyway.
Running out.
So at this point, I could say, okay, we'll see how much damage you do. Or I could say, as the arbiter, let's say I want to keep this all narrative. I say, okay, you smack it in the face with your chancletas, with your fucking racket feet, and you hit it right in the nose, and it goes, and runs off. Now everyone is alerted. You see that your snowshoe is not broken. You grab it, and now you guys move on.
Yeah.
So that's an encounter. I could also go the opposite way and say, okay.
And of course, I would have had to have bid to do what I described.
Yes.
I could bid something like cloistered.
Right. He spends the cunning to go first. He bids cloistered to smack it in the face.
Right.
Let's say I want to make it difficult. Let's say it literally is a difficult task, which we call it a fiendish difficulty. We'll probably change that eventually, but that's what it's called.
That is what it's called.
If it's a moderate difficulty or normal difficulty, you can just bid the wildebeest runs off. But if it's a fiendish difficulty, you have to throw down. Simply bidding that's your major action, but essentially your major action is contested, and you have to roll enough successes to make it go. That's when you get throwing down, and then he throws dice against basically a difficulty threshold, just called a threshold. We'll get to that. What we're dealing with right now in the book is degrees of failure. Here's the interesting thing. In D&D, if you fail, it fucking sucks. In fact, you're supposed to win. In DreadLore, it's okay if you fail. Because let's say he fails this roll. Okay? Let's say he makes the roll. We'll get past... what is this? Block with your pack. What?
No cunning linguist jokes.
Oh, that's funny. You guys should check out the game Fiasco. Ooh, I've never heard of that actually. Instead of rolling something, you elaborate on what you want. Yes, correct. Well, you're correct, Megan, about you're elaborating what you want to do, but it's important that you bid a character trait that you have on your sheet.
You have to spend something to affect the environment, to affect the scene. You have to lose something for it. You're losing a resource.
Yeah.
You have a finite amount of them, and in order to continue to effectively improve your environment and improve your situation, you have to burn through those resources.
Yeah, so, well, let me finish this one thought. Let's say that, since we're talking about degrees of failure, let's say that he bids cloistered, which is one of his traits. So he's both prepared and cloistered. Both of those are exhausted. He can't use them in this scene. When does the scene end and a new begin? It's completely up to the Arbiter. Okay? It's not the encounter. The Arbiter completely controls almost completely controls when a scene happens. There is a way that the players can demand a scene change. When a scene changes, all of your exhausted traits are recovered, with the caveat of health, because they are technically traits as well. Regardless, which you could bid, and they'd be pretty ballsy. Regardless, let's say he bids cloistered, he pulls out his snowshoe, motherfucker, and smacks this wildebeest in the face, and the Arbiter just says, there's no throwing down. The Arbiter says, okay, your snowshoe explodes into just pieces all over the wildebeest's face and all around you, and it looks at you mildly amused and at the same time utterly pissed.
I scream into the encampment. It's a man. It's a man. They have thumbs. It's a man.
Right. Maybe that's it. And that is that little encounter.
A bit excitable. It's my flaw.
And boom, he can do that. He bids excitable, a flaw. Oh shit, as you scream and whatnot, and you do go from there. Now again, we're in mind's eye theater here. There's a lot of, what is it, the Spider-Man quote? With great
power
comes
great
responsibility. Yeah, people can be dicks here. But the thing is, the system, how to put this, I just thought of like 3 different examples. The system kind of self-regulates. Because, so I was running a game about a week ago at the Highland Renaissance Fair. Actually, we were both running. He set it up and I finished it. And one of the guys, we were teaching him how this all works in a very similar situation. And he was like, hold on a second, I can bid anything and kind of anything happens? And I said, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. But understand, however far you think you can go by being a dick, I'm the Arbiter. I can be way worse. So,
at the same time, though, the game reward system is about achieving those goals. And players who are rude or dicks or intentionally impede the play experience or degrade the play experience, they're not going to be achieving those goals. And it self-regulates in that regard, too.
Yeah,
because
won't play.
They don't get XP just for playing. They only improve their character. They only really develop any sort of mechanical growth through telling that story.
And eventually, and the oddity is, you have people that immediately, they're just like, oh, fuck it, and they're out. And they play like 10 minutes. Or, and that's a very small portion of people that we've encountered. Or, if you have a normally problematic character or player, exactly what he said happens. They're like, wait a minute, oh, I'm rewarded for story. And they suddenly, like their creative juices start going, and they start being creative.
Not only that, but they're acting in line with the party because you help everyone else get their goals, and you get extra advancements much faster. So not only does everyone else play ball, they all start to unify and converge.
Like, oh, we're playing football
in terms of their goals, and they work as a team.
Yep. Even if it's PvP.
Within the game. Even if it's PvP.
They work as a team to make a story. And here's a thought as well, which maybe you guys might be thinking, I don't know. We've been sort of vilifying, as I normally do, players. The Arbiter can be a dick as well. And these rules actually self-enforce the Arbiter because you have this player group that can actually do certain things to make the Arbiter, to remind the Arbiter, hey, you're not the game master. You're not the dungeon master. You're the Arbiter. You're the referee. You arbitrate. Because when it comes down to it, You are all 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 3, 2, whoever, how many players you have, plus the Arbiter. You're playing this game. The Arbiter is playing a role.
It's a step away from that antiquated adversarial DM relationship.
No, DM is God. The Arbiter is not God. But the Arbiter does have the final say. And that authority has to be respected. The thing is, I mean, any GM knows, any ST knows, that's all great, fine and dandy that you're God, whatever, and you get to say what goes, and then your players fucking quit, right? Or the game sucks. Or anyway, the point is, DreadLore doesn't seem to go down that route very often. Maybe we've just been fortunate, or we haven't play tested enough. Okay, let's actually start on this book today. Book Shang.
Did you see Megan's comment?
Oh, what did she say? They become a team to create a better story. They become a team. He's telling the story. With great power comes great responsibility.
Indeed.
That gets a pip.
It's good shit. Indeed.
All right, start, please. I'm gonna get some water. Do you want some water?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. Go ahead and run through.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about rolling dice. We've already moved past some of the dice mechanics, but the long and short of it is, when you throw down, when you're prompted to throw down because your bid wasn't enough to affect the change that you were attempting, then you're prompted to throw down. You roll some dice. We're to talk about failing those rolls. So this first part is technically a degree of success. It's sort of like failing forward, but we call it limbo. It's that gray area that you don't want to be in, that's kind of uncomfortable. It's not what you were hoping for. Purgatory. Thank you, sir. But the idea is, you wanted to go through the door, you wanted to cross over the threshold, but instead you find yourself in the threshold. You did not walk through. You're in it. Limbo is what happens when you meet the threshold, or if you were playing D&D 3.5 or 5th edition, it's what happens when you meet the DC, right? You need 5 successes. Okay, cool, I got 5 successes. All right, you accomplish what you're attempting to do, but something else happens. So limbo is essentially, if you meet the threshold, you go to limbo. It's sort of like a dirty success. It's not clean. It is a yes but scenario where there's an unintended consequence, or it's like you're trying to show off and you do this really cool backflip and then you don't stick the landing and you end up on your ass. That's limbo. You did a backflip, but it wasn't a good one. The more ambitious the task that you were attempting, the more dramatic that but is, that yes but is. It can be something as like, I want to read their expression. I'm going to sense their motivation for the person I'm talking to. Are they lying to me, right? I got 3 successes. I needed 3. The threshold was 3 to see if they're lying. And the response you probably get in this is, yeah, you're very confident they're telling the truth, but there's a doubt. This person is a spy. Yeah? And that sticks with you. That is limbo. It just doesn't fuck you over as hard as a real failure. Exactly. Things go awry, not as planned.
Right. But you still are succeeding.
You're still succeeding. Ultimately the task you're attempting to do is successful. You unlock the door, but people will know that you broke in. You steal the thing, but you're caught on camera. The one guy gets away. The witness sees something.
Right.
Maybe it's you. Exactly. You got it. So that is limbo. There's regular failure, where you just don't beat the threshold. You fail. You don't succeed. I think that is what it is on the 10, right? It's known. You fucked up. Critical failure is shitting the bed. You shit the bed. You beansed it. It occurs when a player, or the arbiter, rolls double ones, snake eyes, on their aspect and action dice, which we've described before. We've defined those in previous live streams. But those are your two main dice, right? If you snake eyes that shit, you're fucked. There are ways to avoid that, like spending breath, which is another pool like cunning that has a sort of meta effect. Yes. Oh, I see. But ultimately, if you don't have breath to spend, or you just don't want to, or whatever, you just don't for some other reason, if you roll nat ones on your two main dice, it doesn't matter what else you roll. You shit the bed.
Although, here's the thing, and this is something that we have started talking about. Originally, the action die and the aspect die were very, very important. Okay?
Indeed, fucking awful things happen. That's
right.
Correct.
So originally, these two dice, they were paramount. So, for example, oh shit, fucked up. So, for example, the way it worked was everyone gets an action die. That's a die 10. Did you talk about this?
I just said we referenced it in previous
Okay.
streams. Let's do it.
So an action die is a D10. That's basically what you get. Everyone gets that. Now there are ways that it lowers if you get technically like seriously fucked up, but it's not very common. There's certain conditions that can fuck you up. Most often, you have an action die. Then you have an aspect die. Now, this is something you choose. There's 4 aspects. The long and the short of it is there's 2 mentals, there's 2 physicals.
Brawn, grace, mind, and wits.
Right. You roll these 2 die together, they do not add. You're looking for numbers of successes. So, on a die, if you get a 4 or higher, a 4 up, that would be 1 success. If you get an 8 or higher, that would be 2 successes. Now, there's some other things that occur if you get 10s and such, but that's a little bit earlier in the book. So, an average difficulty threshold would be 2 or 3, depending on what you're trying to do.
That's still pretty tough.
That's pretty tough. Now, as we get deeper into the book, and we will go deeper into the book, you actually a player can gain more dice to be able to roll. But you always get your action die and your aspect die, assuming you haven't been fucked up too much to not have an aspect die.
Indeed.
So, what is the point there? That is what happens when you throw down. You're rolling those 2 dice. Now, originally, these 2 dice were kind of sacrosanct. They were the big daddy dice. To make an analogy to D20, you always have a die 20 in D20. You're never, not forfeited, denied a die 20 roll. That was the original idea. But as we started moving through this and thinking about how the game has actually been played, I'm thinking that the action and aspect die, you have them, but maybe for this rule, when it comes to crit failure, maybe you're just looking for all ones.
That skews the probability
big time.
A great degree.
Great degree.
Because in these higher tier games where you're playing extraordinarily powerful characters,
right,
you end up with 4 dice.
5? 5-ish. I don't think you can get
Yeah.
more than that.
The idea of rolling like a reverse Yahtzee,
Even if they're all die 4s, it's still a really.
it's just not
fucking
going to
hard.
happen.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Well, here's the problem. The problem is keeping track of which die is your action and aspect die. Maybe there should be different colored dice.
We do that with the chaos die.
We do. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. I have to go let in my lady friend. I'll be back. Continue talking, please.
Okay. So, Megan, you saying fucking awful things that actually made me think. I don't know. This scenario played out in my mind, and maybe you could tell me, but I'm thinking of a movie where, they're like fuck offs or fuck ups that somehow are destined to be heroes or something. And it's like they got the MacGuffin. Oh, they've got the thing, and immediately someone trips and like drops it and it shatters on the floor. Fucking awful things. Fucking awful things. I was cracking up. Thank you for that. So, random attacks and collateral damage. Sometimes luck is not in the player's favor. The Arbiter can make a snap decision and decide who is affected by a random attack or collateral damage as appropriate to the story, or she can roll to make that determination. And actually leave it up to luck. You choose, the Arbiter, she would choose players and NPCs that are involved in the attack and assigns each a number value, which corresponds to the faces on the die. And whichever number or numbers come up on the roll are the ones to take the heat. So, you've got 6 players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You roll, 6 comes up. Player number 6, they get it. That's not necessarily about degrees of failure, but it ties into those fucking awful things that we were talking about, right? So, weapon breaks, you shoot into the melee, and the arrow penetrates your buddy. You never want to penetrate your buddy. Or maybe you do. Maybe they deserve it. Yeah. Anyway. Random attacks and collateral damage. That's why we put it there. It's a little bit of a non sequitur, but it fits. That's it. That's failure in a nutshell. You can get that yes but, that tasty little limbo. You can fail, and you can critically fail. And typically there are other consequences involved with critical failures, such as that collateral damage. And the simplest way to handle that is pick the person that's close, that's appropriate, or roll randomly. Give everybody a number and go. So, that brings us into boosting and reducing dice, bonuses and penalties, or malices.
The malices.
So, DreadLore is a game about escalating die types in terms of your dice pool and the power that you have to affect a scene or gain successes. They range from nothing, what we call a weak aspect, to a D12. And you can get bonuses and penalties to affect that, but there are also means by which you can boost or reduce those dice down, one step or up a step, that kind of thing. So a boost of a die would boost it one step up from a D4 to a D6 or a D8 to a D10, that sort of thing. A reduction is the opposite. So a D6 to a D4, a D4 to nothing. Yeah, pretty simple. Bonuses and penalties, they're a flat modifier that go towards your successes, right? So it's like I roll my dice, I get 4 successes. Great, you have a penalty of -2, you get 2 successes. Typically, these are known going into the roll. Sometimes you go in blind when it's appropriate. That's an arbiter decision. We leave it up to them. But a lot of the time, I'd say most of the time, the bonuses and penalties that are being applied to the roll are known. And sometimes, because those bonuses and penalties are a result of and chosen by the player that's rolling. Oh, I have this thing. It gives me a bonus to this. Well, I can trade a penalty for a bonus to that, like power attack in 3-5.
Where are we? What
Excuse
the fuck
me.
are we doing?
I don't have the COVID. I was talking too long.
Buddy penetration is generally a bad.
It was a whole thing. It was a whole thing.
Luck isn't always good. Truth. Example: you break a weapon, miss, and hit an ally. Fucking awful things. I love it. All right. So.
We've talked about boosts, reductions.
Oh, you went all the way back. Okay.
What? No, we went forward.
Oh, you went forward. All of this is good. Part of what we're doing is so we wrote this. Actually, this version of the game is only about a year old. Truth be told.
Yeah.
And what eventually happens is
During combat.
right.
Yeah.
What eventually happens is you start playing the game as you wrote it, but then things slowly change, and before you know it, those mechanics that everyone knows are totally different. Or there's fundamental things that are different. So, for instance, aspect and action dice, the way you actually do them is different. So, one of the things we're trying to do here is go through and make sure we're actually playing the game we wrote.
Shoring it up.
Yeah.
Actually, case in point, boosts or bonuses and penalties. Originally, they were just numerical modifiers. They add to your successes. They take away from your successes. The book mentions gaining extra.
Touching this because.
Yeah, indeed. The book actually references gaining extra dice as a bonus.
Where does it say that?
Right there.
Oh, lordy.
A bonus grants an addition to your throwdown. The bonus can take the form of gaining an extra die for damage, or as successes.
Can we read it from the beginning? As with boost, reduce, several elements, powers, etc. can affect your rolls. There are two major ways this happens, bonus and penalty. This is really a throwback to 1.7, because we don't really use bonuses or penalties now.
They don't happen often.
I mean, it's very, very seldom.
You give yourself a bonus to the roll when you spend an extra trait.
Yeah, but we don't talk about it like that in the book, except for right there.
Yeah.
I don't think. We'll find out. A bonus grants in addition to your throwdown. The bonus can take the form of gaining an extra die for damage, or as successes. Okay, it doesn't tell you how you get one though. A penalty acts as subtraction, so it does the opposite.
I don't think that bonuses should be interpreted as extra dice.
I think you're right. Several elements can affect your die types. There are two major ways this happens. God, I feel like we just copied and pasted.
We did.
Boost and reduce. A boost increases a die type one step. A reduce is one step, or another step down. Boost is a step up. Reduce is a step down.
Already talked about this.
This
is for Will.
I know, it's for me. Bonus and penalty. This bonus and penalty is completely an attempt to shoehorn 1.7 into Redux.
There's room for it. You can make an argument there are circumstances that would be better represented by bonuses and penalties. And some play groups are just going to be more comfortable with it. I'd say leave it in, cap it at a +1, -1, or something like that. Or however I don't think the cap's necessary, but
would it be towards successes or toward?
It's towards successes, not dice, because then you start getting into how big is the die.
So boost reduce is towards dice.
It's an addition or subtraction to or from your total number of successes.
Boost reduce.
Oh, sorry, boost. I'm talking about bonuses and penalties. Boost and reduce are fine.
Okay, boost reduce has to do with your die type. Bonus penalty has to do with your successes.
Yeah.
All right. I should type that. Or we can just make a note of it.
Make a note.
Okay. Let me make this note real quick. has only to do, I should say, only affects total number of successes. Boom.
Done. All right.
Handled.
I can go in there and shore that up.
Yep. All right. Let's see if... sounds like very healthy growth for a brainchild. Buddy penetration during a general combat, bad thing. During combat sounds like very healthy growth for a brainchild. Truth. All right. I want to see where these other people are. Okay, they're at the top. Okay, so they must be following us.
That's where their cursor is.
The cursor's down.
Are you all following along the book, actually? Or do you just have it open?
Yeah. I should use this. I really wish that the stream showed where we were.
I would love that.
All right, give me 1.5 minutes. Time me. I'm gonna try to figure this out really quick.
All right, Tommy. I'm gonna go handle some biological necessities.
Cool. Go do the biology. The biology. All right, I'm gonna see if this actually fucking works. Browser. So what? I'm using OBS to do the streaming. I have no idea what that stands for. And probably something service. Broadcast service? Anyway. One of the inputs is browser. The thing is, when I put the browser on the Google Doc, it just goes to the URL, but it doesn't actually follow us. So it's not a screen capture. And I want a screen capture because then anytime we switch back and forth, it's going to throw you off. And I'm not sure which one of these things to do. There's display capture. There's window capture. I'm going to try to do window capture real quick. Window Firefox. That's what it's going to be. The window shall be Firefox. Ooh, maybe that actually totally... Oh my god, that totally works. Hell yeah. But you can't fucking see it. Oh, where? Let me see. Turn off that. Yeah, I think that works pretty well. Let me see. Yeah, that works. Unfortunately, you can't really read it, but it kind of gives you an idea of where we are in the book. Make sure that actually switches real quick. Yep. Awesome. Ausgezeichnet. Yeah. Okay. Following on, but it's weird that you say something after it updates on the dock. Truth. Yeah, so that's one of the things is... I think it's a delay for security purposes on the stream, because the stream is about 8 to 10 seconds behind what we're actually doing. So when you guys type something, that's why there's. Sorry, I was reading the comments and lost my train of thought. That's why there's a delay. Now, it's something that I might be able to change, but I don't exactly know how. It's probably really easy. I don't know how to do it exactly. That's why it's different, though. But I can see how that would be a bitch. Man. And Megan has it open. Tessellation coil. I love you, Tessa. You are so awesome. And Cameron. Awesome. Let me see if I can fix it really fast. I might be able to. Live chat, enable live chat, allow live chat. There's a weird slow mode, but that's not what I want. Allow embedding. The video contains paid promotion. It does not. Additional details, YouTube Studio. Bad is out there doing bad things real quick, so we'll take a real quick what's up. Analytics, settings. Let's see, channel. Yeah, there's no way to like stop that from happening. I think it's just something that delay is just something that happens, which is unfortunate. It can't be immediate, but what it is not a problem with the bandwidth. It's just there is a delay on the stream imposed by YouTube. So. The delay?
No. The
Yes, I did.
really?
God damn it. I did, of course.
Oh.
Would you get me a beer?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, the delay, indeed. Well, I already said all that stuff. So, we're just going to keep on going. All right. So, he moved past degrees of failure. So, I'll remove this "we are here" thing. Also, if you guys have any questions about, thanks, sir. If you guys have any questions about how these rules work, or if you think, it's a bad rule, or you think it's a good rule, or whatever, let us know, and we'll throw it down. Also, Cameron, I know that you have comment access, so go ahead and make some comments if you want to reply to some stuff or whatever. And the same for Megan and Tessa.
Hi, Tessa.
Yeah, her name on there is Tessellation Coil.
Ooh, that's cool.
In the event that you guys do want to do some commenting and stuff, just let us know, and we'll throw you the permissions. Okay. Special roles. So I think they're probably up to date enough to just read through the book at this point.
Sweet.
Yeah, if there's a point where you don't understand, mention it in the comments, and we'll get to it.
Yep.
Okay. Special roles. I would start this biatch. Special roles usually occur when a player is activating one of their proficiencies, rerolls, in the case of mulligans and upper hands, or when the character is mal-affected or penalized in some way. Well, I wrote that.
Yes, you did.
Does that actually make any sense?
It does.
It's the way that I talk.
Mal-affected, I want it to work because it's like malefactor. Right? But I don't think it does. It's fine.
I don't think it's a real word.
Everything's fine. Well, nothing's a real word until it becomes a real word. You just have to get people to adopt it. Then it becomes part of the parlance. And
all right, special roles. Hey, girl. Come in here really quick, please.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? We're talking about special roles. Special roles usually occur when a player is activating one of their proficiencies, or rerolls.
okay.
Do you all match on purpose?
No.
We just wear black because we're awesome.
Mm-mm.
Special roles usually occur when a player is activating one of their proficiencies, aka rerolls, in the case of mulligans and upper hands, or when their character is mal-affected or penalized in some way.
Makes sense? Yeah.
So long as it makes sense, we're good. That needs to be this part right here. Specifically. The whole thing, really. Reword. We'll just put that down. I know Cameron's sitting there like typing it out like motherfucker. I'm gonna just tear that shit up.
Yeah.
I know you are, you motherfucker. Alright. It is really will speak. Yeah, indeed. She's right. That was actually a comment.
That's awesome.
We will help you move.
I'm going to lock the truck and be done.
Cool. What are you doing, Cameron? What are you doing? Highlighting shit, you son of a bitch.
Knew he was going to go for that.
I knew he was going for it.
Knew it.
Don't you throw me some fucking $4 word. You son of a... Anyway. Mulligan. So it describes it below. A mulligan, or mulligan roll, applies to a singular die. After rolling die, a player may bid a trait which grants a mulligan and re-roll that die. Hold on. They must take the new result even if it is worse. Ah!
I'm pretty sure I added that last sentence.
No.
I think I added the only
No!
coherent part of that.
No.
I added the only coherent part of that. I'm fairly confident.
Oh, just change it. Actually, we'll let Cameron change it.
Or at
Cameron,
least I edited.
Cameron, change that. Make a comment. Cameron, change it. Just make a comment and say, hey, Cameron, rework
I'm
it.
just going to get rid of this.
No! You're fucking with my work!
My work! Upper hand is like a better mulligan. Mulligans, like in golf, you're starting over. And
What, in golf?
That's where it comes from.
I know where it comes from.
So, upper hands, you're not starting fresh. The only difference between an upper hand and a mulligan is that with upper hand, you get to keep the better result. So you're like, oh shit, I rolled and I got 1 success on this die and I really needed 2. Okay, upper hand. And you get no successes on the reroll. Well, because it's upper hand, you can keep that original first success.
Upper hand, similar to mulligan, an
did.
upper hand roll applies to a singular die except that the player may take the better of the 2 results. I
You're
think that's
reading.
a way... Of course I'm reading. That's what we're
Yeah.
supposed to do.
Yeah, I just start talking.
I know. Detriment, which we very rarely use. A detriment or detriment roll is the reverse of upper hand. After rolling a die, the player re-rolls it and then takes the worst. So, if you've played Dungeons & Dragons 5th ed, you're talking about advantage and disadvantage. It's the same kind of mechanic.
No.
The difference, however, is in DreadLore, I'm pretty sure at least, detriment is actually fucking detrimental.
It was especially so when it affected all your dice. But
Truth.
upper hand, so that was in 1.7. In the old system, which we won't harp on this long, rerolls affected your entire dice pool. So if you're rolling 3 dice and you get the numbers you want, and someone says, re-roll that with disadvantage. In D&D, you have 1 die. You have the D20,
Yeah.
right? In DreadLore, you're re-rolling all 3 of those and taking the worst possible combination of those 3 dice.
That was the original
Results.
way.
Now it's re-roll that, take the worst.
It's that specific
I
die.
picked this die.
Well, okay, so there's the contention there. But to explain a little bit of the probability, not that you guys need that, but to explain it, because even I don't completely understand it, is that I don't know all the numbers and the percentages, because it's a lot of math. But the idea is, in D&D, you are only ever rolling 1 die 20, okay? You're only ever rolling 1 die 20, which means there's a static probability. If you roll it twice and take the better, if you roll it twice and take the worst. If you're a more powerful character, you have bonuses. You have pluses to your roll, no matter what you roll on that die 20. You roll a 2 and you got a plus 20, you got a 22, that's awesome. In D&D. In DreadLore, especially this version, it's all about your successes and what your dice actually do. So, if you're rolling all of your dice and taking the worst, that's heinous. Like I can't even imagine.
It's an auto fail.
Yeah,
like
it's
congratulations. I want you to not succeed.
It's like why even roll?
Yeah, just tell them they can't do it.
Yeah, you should do a fate roll, which is way more fun.
Yeah, as a little bit of DM wisdom, if you don't want your players to be capable of achieving something, don't let them punish themselves by attempting the roll. Just tell them they can't do it.
Yep.
Or tell them what they need to do to be eligible for the roll. It's hard to tell players no, and generally I don't recommend hard no's as a storyteller of any kind. But don't let someone go through the motions and try and attempt to do something when from the outset it's impossible.
Yeah. Well, it comes off as railroading when it's not. It ends up in railroading and the bad kind. Regardless, we can get on that later. Thank you, Cameron, for doing that shit.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so
is detriment which die is it that you're
well,
rerolling?
let's read what it says. That you know what I mean by that. Are these referring to the action aspect dice or to specific die?
They're not. These are, in the case of a player choosing to roll a mulligan or an upper hand roll, they have a specific die in mind. They've got their dice pool, they've got their action die, they've got their aspect die, and they've got their expertise die because they're a mage and they're using magic and they're casting a spell, right? They're summoning some sort of etheric illusion or whatever. And so they got their 3 dice and they roll and they get 2 successes on one success on another, and on the third they get nothing. But the third is a big honking D12, and they know that they have a really good chance of getting 2 successes on that. So they want to spend the reroll on that, right? You have an agency over which specific die you're rerolling for proficiencies. When it comes to detrimental rolls, detriments, that's something that the arbiter is typically assigning you because of a circumstance, the penalty of your circumstances.
To be honest, I think it should just be your action aspect die.
Is both of them?
Because it's heinous anyway, or maybe just your action die. Because it shouldn't deal with extra dice, I don't think. I don't know.
It gives the arbiter a lot of power to just look at your dice and say, "Oh, that's the one you got flare on. Reroll that."
Yeah, but that's shit though. You reroll. When it's a choice, it's one thing. When it's random, it's another. For instance, I rolled my die, I got a 1. Well, you rolled the die. It was the roll of the die. Can you do something about it? In DreadLore, you can. Then the arbiter comes along. Oh, we'll reroll it. You get detriment, so it's a 1. That's bullshit.
Why don't we just get rid of it and just use impairment?
Because I do like the idea of the reverse of upper hand.
We do. We like that idea.
It's just, when should it happen? So it says, detriment is the reverse of upper hand. After rolling a die, the player rerolls it and takes the worst. I think that should have to do with the action aspect roll. If you're at detriment, your major roll, action aspect, assuming those 2 dice mean something, should fuck you up.
Make it the action die then, not the aspect die. The action die is almost always a D10.
And it is mutable too, the aspect die.
The aspect die is mutable, you may not have it. And ultimately what you're affecting in a detrimental way is their action.
I think it should be the action die or the chaos die.
Oh.
Because those are 2 narrative-driven rolls. Chaos die is always narrative-driven. We'll get around to it, what it is. It usually comes around to like, hey, could something go really, really wrong? It's that little bit of randomness, and you might have to re-roll it. But it's a D6, and if you get a 4, 5, or 6, it gives you a success. I think chaos could have detriment, and that's a way of saying, hey, this is really chaotic, you get detriment. Or it was done in a very chaotic way. And the action die, this might be an interesting way to affect the action die. Interestingly. For instance, you hex them. Well, their action die is at detriment. It's not lowered to a D8, right? Or to a D6, or now you don't have one, because you get fucked. Or we might just make this really cool rule and then fucking forget about it. What do you think?
The reality is that we're leaving these modifiers, these role modifiers in the system to give other play groups, the player base that will eventually be playing this game, we hope, opportunity to go with the role modifiers that they are most comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're not going to care about the statistics. They're going to care about how it feels. So, can you accomplish relatively the same thing with impairment, with reduction of the die type, with an extra die? Suddenly you get a chaos die. All of these things. You just have agency in which modifiers you want to employ in the game as an arbiter, as a player, as a play group. And I think just having a rule set that allows them to use that. If they don't use it, it's fine. These are just things that can occur.
That's a good point, because you can play this game very easily, completely in the dread. You could completely play You could completely play this game completely throwing down. I mean, you would have to bid to throw down, but
Right.
there's ways to do it. Megan mentioned something very interesting here.
Make it the action die, but circumstantial.
As in the idea that I think what she's going for is, in the event there needs to be a detriment, it affects the action die.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think it should be the chaos die as well. Because the chaos die is something that comes up with theurgy, which is the science of the world, or with magica, which is the magic of the world. What do you think? Cameron says, what about listing these traits as expertise traits and proficiency traits specifically? Okay, so to address that, Cameron, they are. We are mentioning them here at the beginning of the document so that we can use them later and you have seen them before. It's the assumption that a person reading this is going down the list, like they've gone to this module and they're like, oh, I'm looking at the mechanics. But it's not totally gone into great detail because we're not yet to proficiencies. Part of this problem is formatting, because we're in a document and not a book. In a book, we would have a little reference that says, oh, check out proficiencies, module, whatever the fuck it is, chapter such and such. But in a document, we're not doing that. So this is giving you the nomenclature and the run and gun definition, so that when we finally get to it, you're like, oh, there it is, and you read it. Or, let's say you don't get down to proficiencies because you don't fuck with them. But here you know there is such a thing as a mulligan and an upper hand, which is important.
I think both arguments have merit, right? We are defining these rerolls. Don't mark it resolved yet.
Okay.
Because where I'm going.
Sure.
We are defining the rerolls, and we don't want to distract the reader into going, well, what's a proficiency? That said, we're basically defining these by trying to avoid talking about proficiencies, and you do reference it in these special roles here. It will be cleaner, to take Cameron's suggestion. So it has merit. I think right now we're going to leave it as is. Once we start worrying about the transition from Word document to book, when it's less linear, we may revisit that, but I do like the suggestion.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion. Absolutely, because, well, like what you just said, shit should go in its own chapter. It shouldn't be repeated. So, totally true. Right, so moving on, there's nothing really bad here. We should make a little note talking about detriment. Even if it's a comment that says, hey, does this apply to action and chaos, or should we just take it out of the fucking book? Whatever. Because truth be told, we don't use it. Maybe we should. I don't know. Yeah, the internet is kind of slow since we're streaming. What are you doing, man?
I am making edits to the book live on the internet.
Live on the internet?
I'm live on the internet.
We're live on the internet. Live on the internet.
Okay, then again, we're just,
Live streaming on the internet.
well, I was going to say, we just talked about chaos dice, and that hasn't been defined yet, I don't think.
That's going mainstream.
Do it.
Well,
Well, it's like, oh wait, no, they are editing the book.
they actually are editing it.
They are editing the book.
Well, I think it's, again, format, hell. This is a linear document. We will deal with the idea of when does something happen later.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, if you think about a book, like a narrative book, you can bend this because people expect a mystery at times.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is that? You get to chapter 1, but you don't find it out until chapter 10. With a gaming book, though, it is both a reference book, so like a dictionary, where you don't want to have to spend time. You go to the D's to find Diok, right?
Yep.
What does that mean? It's a reference book.
That's where I go for it.
That's right. It's also a book that you read. You pile through and figure it out. So it has to have a flow, and the problem is when you cannot find the information easily. Here's the thing. I don't know one goddamn motherfucker who reads a fucking gaming book from start to finish. Not one. Now, World of Darkness tried to do it, and it was awful. Cool narrative. Terrible. Like, one of those magazines. It's like one of those magazines where, like, the table of contents is on, like, page fucking 30. Fuck you.
Hate it.
The fact of the matter is, yes, there are points where it's like, well, you technically didn't mention this rule. Ugh. Fucking look for it. Read that shit. Take the fucking time. You're on a goddamn computer. Hit Control or fucking Command F and fucking find the deal. God damn it, you lazy sack motherfucker. God son of a bitch. Anyway, my point is, hi. My point is,
I work with this.
yeah, all the time. My point is, it's a fucking Word document right now. Control F, motherfucker.
Anyway, we do appreciate C&C. Comments and criticism, we will...
Fuck you!
So, getting into a typical game session, we talked about the dread, we talked about throwing down. The other phase of the game that I had mentioned before, but we did not define, was the montage. Here we go. A typical game session begins in the montage. If the game is ongoing, then the players will often give a recap of previous sessions. If it's the first game, then the arbiter might describe initial scenes and environment, and then tie the players into the story using their plugs, their character plugs, to plug them into the game. If the players are able to advance their characters between sessions, they may take the opportunity to do so during the montage, sort of describing, like Rocky, the training montage, and then having the advancement after. So the montage is not the dread because you're not bidding traits, and it's not throwing down because you're not rolling dice. It is purely narrative. There may be times where we skirt that. As in, if you're in the montage and a player really needs to do something in that moment that requires a bid, do it. Then go right back. These phases are not necessarily distinct. And if it helps you to think about it, you don't have to think about them as phases. You're moving in and out of these modes of play sort of freely, flowing between one and the next, right? You're in the dread unless you need to throw down. Once those rolls are over, you're back in the dread and you're bidding again. Even for combat.
You bounce back.
You bounce back. The montage is really any time that you're telling a story and you're not bidding or rolling. You are swiftly moving through a narrative describing the things that your characters are doing. It's like everybody wants to go shopping sometimes in games and get stuff in the market and like get more rations
Montage.
and do that in the montage. And that way there's no, oh, I have to create a shopkeeper and narrate, and they have to roll for appraisals and bartering and oh no, right? Montage that shit. Move through it. It's not what the story's about, but it is part of it. So, the montage is a time without the need for rolls, as I said, barring chaos dice or the random need to invoke probability into the narrative, just like we were talking about before. The players describe their characters and what they are doing, how they're doing it, etc. The arbiter may ask the players what it is they wish to accomplish in the time allotted for this initial scene, be it, the next scene in the campaign or the first scene in a new campaign. These sorts of actions do not usually threaten success or failure, but are mostly related to maintenance tasks, picking up rations, fixing armor, having a much-needed conversation, studying a tome of Magica. Make that be
that's a neat. A tomb.
I wonder if Eric did that. That's an Ericism.
Yeah, it's an Ericism.
You're like,
Probably,
that was Eric.
Definitely Eric.
Walking the grounds of a new town, etc. I see. The montage is often invoked during the game session as well, specifically if characters need some sort of downtime, resting, studying, healing, and so on. Overland travel on an airship until you land. Until the arbiter tricks you into landing. This is a good way for players to do table talk and decide what their plans are or how they will individually react to an upcoming encounter. The players generally ask the arbiter for a chance to invoke the montage, and time willing, they will acquiesce. Or she will acquiesce.
That's right.
Man, I've got some bad drainage in this house. All of a sudden.
That's because this carpet is good. If you wouldn't see it in a movie, it should be in the montage. Agreed. Hands down, cues the right music.
Can we put that in the book? Cameron, can we use that in the book?
Oh, we're just going to use it. We're just going to plagiarize the shit out of it.
We're stealing from you.
Yeah, we are. Where should we put it? Yeah, do it.
I haven't figured it out. Cameron, tell us where to put your words.
Just put it. Put it there.
Put it in there.
Just put it in there.
Put it in.
We're going to just quote Cameron. We'll say sketch White. Boop. Boop. So this is one of the things that we're toying around doing with people that have helped, is like after every chapter, after every module, if you look through this document, every module for sure, sometimes after chapters, and then even after sections and such, to have little quotes. This is something that I picked up. I think I got it from reading Planescape books. I really liked it. Typically the idea that there would be a quote that pertains to the actual book and is within the lore. And so the idea is, for people that actually really commit to the book and helping to edit it and proofread it and beta test and alpha test, all that good stuff. Although we're past alpha testing at this point. Actually having their quotes in the book or having their characters in the book, which I think would be really, really fucking cool. I think it would be cool. Hopefully y'all think it's cool. So we'll say that is Sketch White for now. Trice, the thrice born, and who it might actually become. I just made it a quote. If you wouldn't see it in a movie, it should be in the montage. If you would not see it in a movie, it should be in the montage. Yeah, I like that. Okay. All right. You want to finish this out? Also, we have a little ad there, so.
Okay. Using the dread versus throwing down. A scene that includes major actions, so that's when you bid and you're changing the environment, and thus threatened success or failure can be run in either the dread or throwing down, or both. It is ultimately up to the arbiter to decide which is more suitable, although the player can insist on what they would prefer. Below, we describe the same scenario using both modes of play. The party moves quickly along a steep hillside toward an even steeper round mountain range. It is nighttime. There are no moons in the sky, and so it is difficult to see. The party knows that there is a pass through the mountain, but are unaware of its exact location. A pack of Dana brigands is only hours behind the party, and they are out for blood. Disguised as wildebeests with knives.
With knives, and they have thumbs. So seriously, it is something that I use all the time. That specific thing. Give me one of those.
They're for my throat. You can't have one.
How many do you have?
2.
You only have 2?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your throat? No, that's cool. I got beer. No. You. It's your throat hurts. Go ahead. Okay. Cameron's back. All right. Cameron's back. Back again. He just wants you to tell him where to put it. Yeah, he does. You know where to put it. Oh, Lord. All right. So, of course, this says add because we say below we're going to do some shit, and then we don't do it.
And then we don't do it.
So, we'll make a little comment here and say add should here.
I like how we describing the scenario instead of just writing out the scenario.
I know.
Like you wrote out the scenario, but in a totally unusable way. Like if you just changed the parts of speech, you would have had it.
But the thing is that what this is supposed to do, what this is supposed to do is go through an example of this scenario in the dread and in throwing down, and how it's dealt with by the arbiter and the party.
Right.
That is the scenario in the montage.
Right.
Or it's actually just the setup.
Indeed.
So the idea would be to set it up here in a certain way, and then have the 2 different ways of doing it.
It's the exposition before playing through it.
Honestly,
Here's the situation.
that is the exposition. Here's the situation. You know, truth be told, we may not even need to fucking do this in this document.
I actually like the setup. I found an opportunity to poke fun.
It's fun. But this exposition, do we need to actually give those 2 examples in this document? Or is that something to give to the book?
I don't think it needs an example. Throwing down is when you roll dice. The dread is when you're bidding. If you need to throw down, you're throwing down until you're not, and then you're back in the dread.
Okay, so the way we would change this is we would say, for example, which I can read and type. For example, we could describe the following scenario using either modes of play. Either mode of play. And so that's the idea, that we leave it up to the reader to figure that out. And in the book, if people actually get to this point, they could be like, hey, we want examples. We could give them examples. So what do you guys think? Does this need an example, or have we already explained it well enough? Because we know how it works, so it's very difficult to be objective. Let me make a little note, and that'll be, do we need explicit examples? Okay. We shall move on. Yeah. Chapter 3. Aspects. Aspects represent a character's mental and physical prowess. There are 4 aspects: brawn, grace, mind, and wits. When a character needs to throw down, they will make a roll which uses one of their aspects. Which aspect depends on the action the player is attempting.
Cameron immediately was like, no, I hate it.
Yeah. I feel like some of these descriptions, they do expound on what we're saying. An aspect is, for instance, but they don't really put into perspective how it fits into the game until, and I think the reason for this is the format of this document is there's a chapter or a section that has a title, and then there's a little blurb that briefly describes what we mean by that title, what's going to follow. Then we give the mechanical thing. And after that, any description that we feel is needed or examples therein.
Yeah.
That's the format of the whole thing, which may be a little bit jarring. Be careful, Cameron, how you judge this, because you should judge it as a chapter, not as a paragraph. Because the fact is, this is where we have gone wrong in the past 8 years. Where if you're not careful, man, especially because it's not a book, it's a document, you just have to wait. Like there's no, when you're linearly describing something, you have to wait. Otherwise, imagine a story where you're like, yes, there are, just to use DreadLore, there are such things as the Trosshawks and their violent beings. Well, someone editing might be like, well, you need to define Trosshawk before you mention it. Right? So you do. And you're like, well, a Trosshawk is this and this and this and this and this. But then to describe a Trosshawk in the world, you have to describe the Moroshi. Well, before you use Moroshi, you have to describe what a Moroshi is. Well, what the fuck is a Trosshawk and a Moroshi? Well, okay, they're different races.
I gotta get into the airships and
Yeah, and there's a whole section.
the geography.
There's a whole module later in the book about that. And then you have someone say, like you had done very rightly so, hey, why is this up here? Shouldn't it be down there? And that's something that we fought with ad nauseum.
For 8 years.
Yeah.
So I changed it to the aspect used depends on the action the player is attempting. I'm keeping the semicolon. I love semicolons.
I'm in the semicolon.
They're great.
Power aspects. Also, that was not against Cameron. Cameron, you're awesome, and we love you, and you've done a shit ton of work. It's just also to, because I know Cameron and I, we tend to think impulsively and very similarly.
Yeah.
Like-mindedly. It's easier to say. So, that's just a mistake I've come into. If you've come across something that you think should be changed, throw the comment down, please. Please do. Power aspects. Alright. So, the aspects listed: brawn, grace, mind, and wits. We have something called power aspects and accuracy aspects, although that is not described yet. They're just listed as sections. We should probably say something about why we're calling them power aspects. I just fucked up.
I really don't think it needs it.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. Never mind. Brawn.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If you all think that we need to describe what a power aspect is and an accuracy aspect is, I think it's self-evident. If you know the definitions of brawn and mind and grace and wits, that dichotomy, I feel, is known.
Let us know. Brawn, physical attacks, dealing damage, vigor, tests involving strength and constitution. Mind.
Mental attacks, dealing damage, willpower, test involving contemplation and concentration. Physical power, mental power. See, the descriptions of the aspects, the power aspects, define why they're power aspects.
Right, but you just saying physical power versus mental power? No, you're right. You're right.
Brawn and mind.
Never mind. You're right.
Physical, mental.
Yep, you're right. Accuracy aspects. Grace. Physical attacks with accuracy, defending, movement. Tests involving balance and dexterity.
That's old 1.7 stuff. No, it's not. You did that. Yeah. Wits. Mental attacks with accuracy. Tests involving spatial awareness and mental acuity.
Period.
Flexibility.
Flexibility. Updating. Alright. With the quote from Cam, you were good. Thank you, Megan. Along the same lines. No, I think you're confusing the fact that you need to write out the whole sentence before you use the acronym. Which acronym?
My goal here is to make sure things are clear to be referenced.
Okay. Okay.
Did we do an acronym? This.
Which one?
No.
No, it was. I thought it was up top. Maybe it was there.
This was when you started getting in on that.
Well,
Let us know about whether or not we need to find power versus accuracy aspects.
Yeah.
It really is this simple. We don't go into it really any further than this in terms of defining the different aspects.
Although I'll
Hypothetical acronym. That's what I thought you meant, hypothetical.
Okay.
And I agree with you.
Okay.
Well,
that's a good point. We just need to make sure that, like he said, if we're going to mention it, to sort of like foreshadow, that it needs to be described in an effective way.
Yeah.
So if you think that it's not effective the way it's written, then make a comment, for sure.
So a note on these aspects. Oh, the four of them are loosely defined because we want you to be able to make an argument for which one you get to use, right? The traits that you're bidding to affect the scene, to perform a major action. Well, if it makes sense to you and you can argue the case for it, then you can use something that may be a little non-traditional or not immediately recognizable as applicable, right? You're like, oh, well, I want to use grace for this surgery. Why? Well, I have steady hands, and I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm not going to make mistakes physically. Oh, well, I want to use mind for it because I went to school for years and years and years and years to be a doctor, and I know what I'm doing, right? The arbiter will change the reward, maybe depending on the thing that you're rolling or the bid you make, especially if it's a flaw. But that's the sort of fast and loose style. It's story first. It's not about being absolutely correct. It's, I think this bit is appropriate. Here's how I'm using it. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what my character is doing in the game. And I'm rolling. And the arbiter would say, okay, we'll roll brawn or grace, or roll mind or wits. Or they may just give you the one and tell you which to roll, but they're loosely defined on purpose. Okay, good. I'm glad you think they're solid. Let's talk about how they work. So, when you're making characters, your aspects begin at rank 1 or weak, which means there's no die associated with them. It's something that we talked about before when I was going over reductions to the die types, right? So in character creation, you get so many points to spend on allocating stats and getting traits and that kind of thing. You get so many ranks to allocate across your aspects. Those ranks determine the dice that you use when you're rolling them. You start with no die. I got food made for me. You start with no die. Then you move to a D4, a D6, D8, that kind of thing. The rank is half the faces of the die, right? So a rank 2 aspect would be a d4. 2 times 2 is 4, right? So you double the rank, and that's the die type. We tried to keep it simple. The difference is half of 1 is not 0, but fuck it. To read through it as written, aspects begin at rank 1 or weak, which represents not having a die associated with that aspect. At character creation, players add a certain number of ranks to each of their aspects, and the number of ranks allowed is determined by the player's tier, which is determined by the arbiter. Players are generally going to have characters that are all of more or less the same tier. If they're not, then they're getting something else in exchange. They could be extraordinarily long-lived and have more backgrounds, but less raw power, that kind of thing. But again, that's all set up by the arbiter when the campaign is beginning. The aspect rank values determine several of the character's other attributes. And in order to determine these values, consult the table below. So you would add ranks together to get like your pool. So cunning, we'll get into that, is determined by your aspect ranks. And so you would add the ranks, not the die types. So the highest rank you can get is 6, which is a d12.
Glossary up until here. Oh, I'd started making the glossary, apparently. So attributes. That ... ellipsis is all about, do we need to describe what attributes are before we list them?
So if you've ever played D&D, which both of you have, and I think it's just you two, or there's Tessa. Tessa is still here, I think. So there's 3 of you. You've all played D&D. You know that in D&D you have your ability scores, and then you have other statistics that are derived from those ability scores.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in DreadLore. Attributes are your derived character stats. They're derived from your aspects. That's really the only definition it needs. Derived character statistics. Or character statistics derived from aspects.
Statistics.
Aspects. Aspect ranks. Maybe.
Anything based on tier? List them.
List them. They are listed in the navigation pane as headings.
A table or a list. Yeah, I agree with you. There should be a table or a list there. I wonder, though,
It is in the navigation pane.
It's in the navigation, but it's not in the book. So this also gets us to, it's again, the book versus the document. If people are going to use this document on Google, like Google Docs, they will have that navigation because we've made it headlines or headers.
Right.
And so we don't have to explicitly mention it in the book, like as text.
Yeah.
Because that actually slows down the document, slows up speeds, all kinds of stuff. But if it's in a PDF, they will not have access to that. Then again, this is the document, not the book.
You can transfer the navigation pane when you convert it to a PDF.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Well, if they print it, though.
That's what the table of contents is for?
Truth. And Cameron, you touch on something that's really intense. Different formats. We have to remember what format we're dealing with. So
Cameron's trying to take us down Butthole Road here. The road to Butthole.
But he's got a good point. It's that idea of attributes. I want to see what the attributes are. The thing is, you might not be able to, because if we do that for every chapter, the book will be another 30 pages longer. So we have to think about the medium. I I guess the question then is this for Cameron and Megan and Tessa. When you look at this book on Google Docs with the navigation pane, is there the need for a table or a list there? Now, if it was a physical book, totally agree. There should be a splash page with cool art, says attributes, lists down something there.
Yeah.
That way you
there's
know what to expect.
or just wrap around text around a chart, or
Yeah.
there's all kinds of formatting tricks that we can do. And it may just be that we leave a note that says,
Yeah, let's leave
put
that
a
fucking
table
note.
or a list
Yeah.
in the book.
I think that's it. All right, so we'll keep that. Can we resolve it and it leaves? Actually, we just keep it there.
Just keep it the way
Yeah.
it is.
Okay,
What are
we'll
they gonna say?
Oh, let me look. You can also create internal hyperlinks for the Google Doc. Yes. All right, so anchors. That's a huge thing too. You can literally make links within
Tim's in here.
links. Tim's in here?
Hey, Tim.
What? What's up, dude? Dude. Burning the poop. Bam. Hell yeah. Fucking A. Actually, Tim is in the book. He's his one of his quotes from one of our games is in there. I want to say it's in it might be module 5 or so. Fucking A. Hell yeah.
Oh, and we were only a minute behind him coming in, so we caught it pretty early.
Yes.
Sweet.
That's awesome. Again, Cameron, we're or not towards Cameron, towards everyone else, because I think Cameron knows this. We're not arguing with Cameron. It's a discussion on the idea of formatting techniques, and his comment is staying in the book because we need to actually, like, that's a good place for it to be.
Yeah.
Did we shift this?
It's something to consider.
Okay.
Legitimate.
All right. Since we're closer, I'm gonna bank this up a little bit. God, I have the Hitler look.
I think Megan wanted to know what was up with your hair. She
I
didn't
don't
specify.
know.
She
I
didn't
don't know.
specify if it was me or you, but I think it was you because she
Is it
doesn't know me.
Is it my...
Is it me? Is it me?
The problem with my hair is it's going away, and right now I kind of have like this. It's like a rug. Check it out. Wait, it's going the wrong way. The video goes backwards. See, I've got the. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my hair. This is the best I can do. I think I did it the wrong way. It's because I'm fixing my hair, and I think it's
You did it the wrong way.
it's a mirror. I don't know. I need to wash it. Yeah. It's because it's going away and it's doing funky stuff. I've never had good hair. God damn it. Alright. Let's see. You can see me fucking with my hair. That's a good 20 seconds of our
Live stream.
live stream. Okay. This is a pretty cool aspect of the game. Also, Perna DePow, if you want to jump on the...
Well, don't dox us.
I'm not gonna. I did.
You just did.
I just did.
Do better.
Do better. It was Will because he was fucking with it. Truth. You can also create an internal hyperlink to Google Doc. Yeah, truth. Alright. Alright, attributes. We will probably have a table or list here. Character statistics derived from aspect ranks. Alright. Plot armor. Characters have 12 slots for damage divided between wounds, physical, and sanity, mental. 6 for wounds and 6 for sanity.
Do you think that those are technically
The exact same thing.
well? Those are attributes outside of plot armor.
They are.
Yeah.
Let's continue and we'll figure out how to put them. Because what Baad is talking about is your wounds and sanity are essentially your health levels.
Yeah. And
Okay.
they are not plot armor.
And they're not plot armor, although they are traits.
You could, once you have a wound or a loss of sanity, whatever trait you gain for that can be bid until you heal that.
Yeah, so this needs to be restructured for sure.
And I'd say wounds and sanity need to be defined first because plot armor wards them off.
Yeah, no, you're right. That should be a different section.
Yeah.
This should be under wounds and sanity instead of plot armor. Okay, well, it looks like Cameron's looking at it.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you, Cameron.
so I will continue going through this plot armor section and we can mess with it. Indeed, he's right.
Wow.
Okay. If a character reaches either the 6th slot, you know what I'm saying, for wounds or sanity, we just have gone to the she instead of, are characters?
They?
Well, no, players are they.
Characters are
she.
well, no, the Arbiter's she. Characters are generally the
Right.
same as players because they're player characters.
You're right.
Otherwise, they're antagonists or NPCs.
Right. They.
I don't know. One is he, one is they, one is she. That is wrapped up into that.
I know. If a character reaches either the 6th slot, Cameron just killed all of that. Oh no! We're just gonna let him go. just watch it happen.
Okay, so yes. Actually, Cameron, could you put the plot armor stuff that you're moving ahead underneath? We want to describe wounds and sanity first, because talking about plot armor, if those aren't defined, as in if they are defined immediately after, is going to make us, it's going to require us to be more long-winded. So what he was saying is, for wounds and sanity, not plot armor, if a character reaches either the 6th slot for wounds or sanity, they gain dying or lost as a trait, respectively, and they are essentially dead. So if you lose all your sanity, you are lost, and you lose control of your character. You're not able to play for that scene, or potentially that character ever again. There's some leeway there in terms of character death. That's an arbitration discussion for later. If you lose all of your wounds, then you are dying. If you've played White Wolf before, it's if you've ticked all of your boxes in either wounds or sanity, then you are fucked and done. You're done. You're done. You're done. You're done. You're done, kid. You're done, kid. You're done. So characters in terms of, so that's wounds and sanity. Everybody gets the same. You get 6 wounds. You get 6 sanity. If you take 6 damage, or 6, you lose 6 sanity, then you're fucked.
Well, 6 damage to physical or 6 damage to mental.
Yeah. You can split them, right? So if it's like, well, I've got this incoming damage, I can't mitigate it. I'll take.
You can take 10 total before you die. Because 5 and 5, and then.
Yeah. So you could take 10 before you're actually dead. You'd be very hard to do anything well, but you could take 10 before you die.
You could technically take 11 if that one is on sanity.
Let's not go into it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So the point is, you have to take 5. You have to take 6 to only to the one or the other. If they're spread out across both, which you can do, you will survive longer. So what this represents is that not all wounds are physical. There's that realization of, the brash young warrior goes out of I've been training for 5 years and I'm so good with the sword, and they have their first real fight to the death, and they might not get cut real bad, but they lose, or even if they win, that brush with death shakes them. And so they might take a wound, or their wound might be superficial, and the damage they take is to their sanity. They got rocked. And their framework for the way they perceive the world has been fundamentally altered, and they need time to come to terms with that. So they will heal that over time and grow from it. Otherwise, they get cut in the belly, they're holding their stuff in, and, they get some physic comes along and fixes them. Doctor. But it can go either way, and you choose that narrative as a player. What you want to happen to your character. How is that damage inflicted?
Yeah, and that is a trait. Typically, it's a scar of some sort. In DreadLore, I was thinking about this earlier today, and the day before, In DreadLore, rarely do characters die, unless they choose to. Because when the fact of the matter is, there are two very specific ways to avoid death, despite how much damage you take, which we'll get to in a minute. The whole point is you're not losing
Jacob.
by dying.
So
You're not losing by dying. Your story, that character story is coming to an end. And the question is this a good fucking end? We do not want Game of Thrones endings. Yeah?
Yeah.
We want your character to end well. We don't want you to bow out. We don't want you to say, oh, well, fuck, and the dice didn't go my way, so I just fucking died. Honestly, we put more control in this game to the mind's eye theater. Yes, the dice are there. Yes, there's probability. Yes, it matters. When it comes down to it, if it doesn't fucking make sense, if it's not a cool story, fuck it. Make it a cool story. But you're going to get some scars, whether it's mental scars or physical scars. And that's really where these wounds and sanity come in. You getting beaten up has to do with your plot armor, which we're trying to fix right now. The analog to this would be in D&D, hit points. Plot armor are your hit points. That is determined entirely by your aspects, as in what aspects you chose, how many ranks you put in each of those aspects. That determines how many plot armor traits you have. So let's say someone comes up and they stick you with a sword, deal 4 damage. Well, you soak it, you absorb it with your plot armor, or with the armor you're wearing. The armor you have, if it's medium armor, it can soak, absorb 2 damage. And then the other 4 that come through, that's your plot armor. A player could say, fuck that. That was the stick of destiny. I'm going to let it actually tag me. Boom, you take a wound. No. It tags me in my soul. Well, it's not your soul, it's the fact that, holy shit, Pai Mei stuck me with a sword and I lived. You take a sanity wound, or it's like you take a point of sanity down, kill some of your plot armor, fucks up the traits on your actual armor, your story continues. And then that player might say, oh, I advanced my character by purchasing a trait, which is, struck down by a master. Because they're trying to be a master of the sword, and how can you be a master of the sword if you don't know what it's like to lose? Or something, whatever. Yeah. And you go ye thereforth.
Like you bid a master's touch.
Master's touch.
And you bid it as you are affected by your brush with a master until you become a master, and then you start bidding it for the way that you're touching others.
No. Now, here's the thing, though. To regain a wound or sanity, the hard and fast rule is it takes, you rest a few days, and you regain that wound, right? If you got sliced through the heart or something, well, then it's going to take, a couple weeks or something to regain that. Or you can take something called life wine, which is the magic potion, the healing potion in the game. And it's very, very rare, actually. Healing magic, perhaps, something along those lines. When it comes to sanity, sanity takes a lot longer because, well, it's mental. There are certain kinds of characters that can deal with that much better. So maybe that's something, if we haven't written about, we should. Plot armor, however, you regain after resting, essentially. you can regain it from resting. You can regain it at the next scene because plot armor is traits. So if the Arbiter says, "Hey, new scene," not only do you recover all of your exhausted traits, you also recover your plot armor. You do not recover wounds and sanity. The house rule that I've implemented usually is you regain 1. And you get to choose which one you regain it from. All right. So we are editing down wounds and sanity and plot armor, trying to figure that all out. Cameron, thank you very much for helping us out here.
Yeah.
Because neither of us knew that was going down. Probably shouldn't put a 1 because there's only 1.
Well, I'm assuming that that's going to be split up.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because that's a hot mess.
All right, so you'll notice after that we have resources, breath, cunning, and pips, because it just lists it, and we're not using, what is it called? The commas? Is it the Chicago? The Oxford comma. Yeah. Go ahead, because I've started using it.
I love the Oxford comma.
Yeah, hold on. Do you want to reread what we've edited?
We haven't edited this. I just figured this is all a clarity thing that we'll address
Why don't
offline.
we comment it and assign it to Cameron? Because he's actually very, very good at clarifying. Okay, it's around 9:56. We're going to do this for about another 10 minutes, and then we're going to go eat.
Just dox everyone. Just doxing everyone.
We're going to go eat after this and shut this live stream off. So we got about 10 minutes left because my special lady friend has made food. Right. She's glowering it.
I'm not. That was not a flower.
Was not a glower, but I'm going to give you shit. Mind fucked. Truth. Mental breakdown, psychological break. Yes. In fact, if you take sanity damage, then it almost always instigates a sanity roll. So as in to throw down a mind roll, which is your action aspect, versus a difficulty threshold. And if you fail that, you gain a trait. And that trait is special because it specifically has to do with your derangement. Every character has a derangement. There's an exhaustive list in the book, which I guess we have not gotten to. What that derangement is this. It is, if you go crazy, how do you go crazy? And we'll get to that later. But yes, when you get mindfucked, it has consequences. Okay. I went to the wrong place. Cameron is editing. Hell yeah. All right, resources. Your resources...
Let's scroll down so we're not just... I mean, I know the
Truth.
damage is done, but...
Okay. All right, so breath. Breath pool. A finite number of points that can be spent for the following special circumstances. You know it's recorded, right?
I know.
Okay. Your breath pool is equal to the number of backgrounds you possess. If you want to know what backgrounds are, they're actually mentioned before. Okay. Usually you have 2 or 3. You have a maximum of 6. All right. Spending breath and burning breath. Help. That means this is going to need help. Breath is a vital resource. It's just a resource, really. Allowing a character many options. Spend a breath to forego throwing down. By the way, just since you guys are kind of new to the book, save for Cameron and Tim, anything in brackets is a mechanical thing. So, capitals, italics, bold, those are to draw your attention. If it's in brackets, like the square brackets, that means it is specifically a mechanic of DreadLore. So, spend a point to forego throwing down, immediately matching a difficulty threshold and going to limbo.
So we'll bracket throwing down.
Yep.
Is forego actually a mechanic?
It is.
In where?
Lower.
Alright.
Alright.
Lower.
And you
Lower.
also notice that because we're proofreading /editing, some of the nomenclature and lexicon or editing is wrong. Are we still doing difficulty threshold or just threshold?
Doesn't matter. Let's say
Okay. And going to limbo.
the occasional reminder. The full thing is good. We've got some comments.
So many flavors of crazy, no doubt. All right. 2. Spend a point of breath to temporarily negate the effects of a condition or other condition for a d4 plus 1 rounds while throwing down or for a short period of time in the dread. So I'll do the dread real quick. So rounds, all of those brackets, those square brackets, are game mechanics that have been defined or will be defined.
What's the differentiation between condition and other condition?
It's lower.
Okay.
Condition is exhaustive, other condition is not, I believe is what it is. We should get to it first. Burn! A point to avoid dying and character death. So, I believe I put this burn. Anything in full caps is a trait. I believe the idea was if you burn a breath, technically you lose it. But it matters that you burnt a breath. So a character who has 2 breath in their pool versus one who had 4 but now has 2 because they burnt it, that matters. The idea of if you've somehow gotten that breath back, for instance, one of the characters we have in our current game, Domini, has burnt a ton of breath. But through surreptitious means and the fact that they are epic-ass characters, he's regained it. He's regained some of his breath, but he's also burnt a lot. And so he's aged. And it matters. Those are traits he can actually bid. I burnt a breath. I've seen some fucking shit that has, ripped the sky open. Something that other people haven't had. And maybe even you could have a house rule, oh, you burnt this many breath, and I don't know, you go to hell. All right, number 4. Burn! A point to convince the arbiter to allow an action which would otherwise not be allowed. Doing this is lesser than spending a dread point. Okay, so this is something that's come from experience. People say, oh, breath is important. I will spend it. Well, what if I burn it? Well, it's super important. All right, I want to rip the sky open and punch God in the face. I burn all of my breath. This is the avalanche, the snowball that goes down. So the book deals with this. It says, look, you can burn a point to avoid dying and character death, which is probably the same thing there. Dying and character death. Oh, and character death. It doesn't matter. Burn a point to convince the arbiter of something. The idea is, if a player is willing to burn breath to get something done, the arbiter should listen. That's what this is trying to say. While powerful, spending a point of breath is a dubious action to take. Doing so immediately ages your character 1 apparent season. More time passes for longer-lived races than those who are shorter-lived. This is deprecated. Apparent season, it actually should say ages your character 1 apparent. This is actually wrong. Because this was before periods of life.
Yeah.
So a period of life, this is a little bit crunchy of a mechanic. There's an exhaustive list, which we have not gotten to yet. The idea is, it's not how old you are, it's how old your soul is, kind of. It's the weight of the world.
How many city miles you got on you?
How many city miles do you have? And if you spend a point of breath, you essentially roll a die, which right now is a die 10. It could be anything the arbiter says, though. And you gain a point toward city miles. Toward bananas. Towards your period of life. And once you get to, I think it's 20, you automatically age. So that idea is a little crunchy. I think you hit resolve, and it either didn't do it, or
Shit.
I think you hit X.
I hit resolve. I hit the check mark.
Cameron, can you do that again? Sorry.
I tried to enact it. I'm sorry. I liked it.
You fucked up. You shit the bed.
I shit the bed.
You shit the bed.
I shit the bed.
Okay, so this whole thing of spinning breath and burning breath, it says help. That is our disclaimer. It says it right there. Help.
So, for example, the whole burn a point of breath. I think burn is defined as a mechanic earlier in the book or in the document, but it's listed as a trait here. But yet it doesn't tell you that you get
The
trait. So that's a whole thing. It needs to just be in brackets.
Go on.
And then when we define what burning is earlier, then we say that you gain a trait when you burn something. Let me define burning.
I know. Hold on. Yep. All right, so that's something we need to do.
Yeah.
The other thing is this needs to be updated with the season. This is periods of life now.
Yeah.
Periods of life.
It's like he said. The way this works is whenever you spend breath or burn breath, you roll essentially a d10, and whatever number comes up on that roll is how many ticks towards the next period of life you go. You need 20.
Yeah.
So if you roll 2 10s, if you spend 2 breath and roll 2 10s, congratulations, you are in that next period of life much sooner than you should have been. If you're rolling low, hey, you're fine. But you just don't know what the consequences of spending breath are when you do it.
I think what happened is it was just a little bit over.
Yeah. Okay.
So we will deal with this wording, and during our next live stream, we'll actually deal with this.
Yeah.
Actually, before the next live stream, we will have dealt with this, and we'll continue on.
Right.
Let's go through cunning and pips, and be done. Cool.
Do you want to finish drip? Because then we're getting into special rules and we're essentially
Dread points?
done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go through
Dread points.
dread points. All right.
Okay. So cunning. Your cunning pool is equal to your. Does it say breath pool? It does. Okay. Your cunning pool is equal to your ranks in grace and wits. So, let's see. Breath is backgrounds. Plot armor is brawn and mind. Okay, so there is the difference. Your plot armor is equal to your brawn and mind, your 2 power aspects. Your cunning pool is your 2 accuracy aspects, grace and wits. And we did that. Basically, the overlap is you've got 1 mental and 1 physical that make up both of these pools. There's game balance reasons behind that should be fairly obvious. For cunning, it is a finite number of points that can be spent to jump ahead. This is the player ability to take her turn before an NPC. Their turn before an NPC. As Will had said before, in DreadLore, you've got the world action, if there is one, which technically there's always a world action. You just might not know what it is. It might not be relevant. But for ease, if there's a world action, that happens first. Then you have the NPCs, and then you have the player characters. Unless they spend cunning.
Yeah.
And then they go before the NPCs.
Or antagonist, as it says.
Yeah.
And a careful distinction here is, if you have NPCs in your party, 1, they don't have cunning to spend. They work differently. That is all later in the book. To boot, those NPCs also don't go first. So the antagonists go first. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Pips. Pips can be used in several ways. We don't describe what they are, though. We don't describe what a pip is. One. A pip.
One pip.
One pip can be spent in-game to change some minor element in the narrative. For example, a character can remember to have done something she originally did not do.
I brought snowshoes.
Right. So we will say a single pip can be spent in-game to change some minor element of the narrative. This doesn't need a dash or hyphen, whatever it is. And I haven't done for examples at all.
You don't.
I always do this example.
Okay.
It's just a what am I trying to say? Not tradition. A format that I've been doing for the book.
Just to make it easier for you to read it.
Yeah.
Because of the way your brain works.
Because of the way my brain works. Example: a character can remember. A player can spend one.
You're just repeating it if
Pip.
it's necessary.
Oh my god! I know you're right. Okay. A character can remember to have done something she originally did not do. Did not remember to do. Okay. 2. 5 pips can be spent to purchase a new trait, which becomes available in the following scene or during the next game session. Game session should be this some way, because it was earlier.
Yeah. No, that's the thing that can still happen, because we've gone back and forth with this a lot.
Yes, we have.
Final decision. Is this a valid way to advance?
So, you can advance. Hey, I need to advance. I'm going to gain a trait. Traits are important.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have enough of my goals to advance, but I do have a bunch of pips. I'm going to spend 5 of them to gain a trait. I think that makes sense.
And that leaves your advancements towards things like expertise and proficiency.
Right. Because what eventually happens, I'm glad Domini is here. Some players know exactly where their character is going to go. They just know. And so they save up their advancements and they save up their pips. And that's great. The problem, though, is when you have someone who has, like, they can advance 6 times, they've banked them all, and they've got, like, 12 pips, the game starts breaking down, actually rather quickly. Because one of the things in DreadLore is you can advance in anything you want, assuming it makes sense for the narrative. So you tell the Arbiter first. You can only do that one step. So there's several powers where there's like 6 ranks. You cannot go from 0 to 6. You can't go from 0 to 2. You can go from 0 to 1 or from 2 to 3, but you can't go from 2 to 4 between game sessions. It literally has a governor on how much you can advance. And that can be quite frustrating depending on what's going on.
And to boot, you run into the problem of, well, I haven't gotten the opportunity to
Right.
play out the part of my character that I want to improve upon with my next advancement, and then you get the advancement before that opportunity comes along.
Right.
So then it's like, well, if I spend this on something else, how long am I going to wait until we get enough goals to advance again? So there is that, and banking it, holding on to it for a couple of sessions, we generally allow, and this again is more of an arbiter, like
Workflow.
tutorial
Yeah.
workflow that is at the very end of the book. But the long and short of it is, as an arbiter, you want to encourage your players to advance as soon as is realistically possible after they get that.
And that, the sort of stopgap, I don't know if I'm using that right. The stopgap is, I'm just going to use it. if a player is sitting there and they're like, look, I got a shit ton of pips and advancements that I've been banking, then you need to have a fucking montage. You need to do it. Because montage is one of the 3 modes of play. There's the dread, that's where you normally are. There's throwing down when you're throwing dice. There's the montage. Yes, the montage is done for those scenes that, you would normally cut out of a movie, but that maintenance needs to happen. When do you fucking sharpen your sword? When do you eat? When do you take a shit? When do you train? Even in Lord of the Rings, they show the hobbits training with Boromir, right? Because it's part of your character. It is part of the narrative. D&D cuts that out entirely. Oh, you gain a level. Yeah, you did all that stuff. DreadLore doesn't. Because a lot of times, the nitty-gritty, you going and doing the shit that's boring, I mean, that's your character. The fact of the matter of the wizard studying, and it takes shit tons of time for the mage to do that, should be part of the character. You're always fucking in your book. Well, you're not if you never have to be.
Yeah. Right?
The fact that the dwarf or the dwarf-like character can just seemingly with nothing on bare rock, with no dry wood can make fire, doesn't matter if it doesn't matter. Like, if it's not in the story, doesn't matter. Oh yeah, you had a fire, you had a campfire, who's on watch, great, nothing happened, okay, and you guys traveled for 8 hours. Fuck that, there's no story there. There should be story of your interaction and what's going on. I'll stop it there.
Jacob.
Jacob.
He made a good point. Single pip to take back an action or a statement.
Oh, yeah.
That's very true.
Good point.
Thank you, Jacob.
Good point.
And yeah, one advancement per session is generally the rule. I like this. I think this is good.
Yeah, the 5 pips is nice.
Yeah. So, single. Undo one action statement. Let me see.
No, we're going to use a few. Okay. After this, we'll do dread points later, because we're only like 10 minutes over.
A single pip can be spent to amend or take back an action or utterance that proved calamitous.
Do it. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Cameron's going to fix it, don't worry. Just resolve it.
Just
let him do it.
Just resolve it. The lag is getting to me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Cameron. All right.
So you need to,
and oh shit, that was a terrible idea. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and this is something that we actually need to make a comment on, I feel.
What are pips?
Yeah, what are pips? What are pips? Another thing is anything else a pip can do. Anything else a pip can do.
For clarification, for the purposes of the live stream, pips are those little dots on the sides of the dice? No. They were originally our experience points.
Yeah.
That's what they were. We don't use XP anymore. So what they are now are little like brownie points that you get for being especially attentive and recalling the name of the name of the emperor 500 years ago that we talked about. You know,
being clever, like Megan. I don't know if you saw it before, or heard it before, but when she made that really good pun.
Yeah.
Then I was like, oh, that's pip worthy. So basically playing the game well, you get a pip. Or if the arbiter just makes, for instance, me, I'm sitting there, I'm like half drunk, and I'm like, so anyway, you guys walk through the door, and then the players are like, the door was locked last game session. I'm like, fuck. All right, yeah, you get a pip. Right? There's a quid pro quo. All right, we have got to end here. We would normally continue, but Bad has to work. We both need to eat. Girl has made us food. She is literally eating all of her food in front of us.
Yeah.
So we got to bounce. Thank you guys for coming for the live stream. We plan on doing this
Every Monday.
every Monday at 7 o'clock, and we're going through the book. It's going to take time, so this is going to be the focus of what we do. But I think that we've already set up the idea that we will talk about gaming, and we want you all to be back. You're all gamers. A lot of you are dreadies, so you're in our games, and some of you aren't, which you should be. We have a DreadLore server on Discord. If you're not on it, let us know, and we'll jump you on there. If you'd like to edit on the book or comment on the book, let us know. We'll put you on there. And if you can, get a couple more people to join us next Monday at 7. Instagram, have us followed. If you're not subscribed to Something Bunkum, subscribe, because we want to blow up the channel. It's not just short films and whatnot that I'm doing and that we're doing. It's also DreadLore. So that'd be awesome. And the entire goal is to have like a fucking 100,000 people on this biatch, so that we can go to like conventions, everybody come, dress up like goofy fucking characters out of the game, maybe make some money, whatever. At the very least, have really good discourse about this thing that we all spend a lot of time doing.
Yep.
So, last closing statements.
Thank you all for your attentiveness, joining in on the stream, and helping us at the book.
For real.
Yeah.
Megan, yes, so 4 p.m. your time, because I want to say California is 3 hours behind. I think it is. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. Although that will change because we're in Kentucky, so September 21st we will fall back. So it'll actually change, Megan. But we'll make an update about it. It'll be 7 p.m. Eastern. All right. So, yeah, and please let us know through the comments, because here in about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, I will actually post this video as a pre-recorded video onto the channel. And please leave comments, like it, if you will, just hit the like, because it helps the algorithm. And subscribe to the channel. For real, next Monday, get at least one other person to jump on. It totally helps this move. And leave comments for things we can do better, for things that you liked, whatever. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Also, if you guys do your own live streams, if you have your own channel, I know that Megan has some stuff that she does. Leave it in the comments, and we will absolutely reciprocate and post. Leave whatever tag you want, and we'll throw down. All right, we out. Guten Tag. Gute Nacht.
Gute Nacht.
Gute Nacht. Auf Wiedersehen. Peace out, guys. Or as they say in DreadLore, bye.